Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Box Office Bingers. So this week we're doing something a little different. I don't think we've ever done this type of episode before, but we're trying a little bit something new. So full disclosure, we tried to put out an episode last week. Didn't work out. We had too many technical difficulties, and it just wasn't working out for us. We spent 2 days, 2 separate days trying to get this off the ground, and to no end. We couldn't get it out. And so between now and then, we've watched so many other movies that we decided to push news another week. I know we had pushed it, I think, already last week or 2 weeks ago at this point, but we're going to have one big old news segment coming in next week's episode. And for this week, we decided to talk about 4 movies that we had, like 4 brand new movies that are currently out in theaters right now, and just solely make this full episode just focusing on those 4 movies. So Ernesto, tell our listeners what those 4 movies are.
Well, we are going to be reviewing the new How to Train Your Dragon, 28 years later, The Life of Chuck, and The Materialists. And we were talking before the show, I think like all 4 movies, I think they each give they have a little something to give on each one, but they kind of represent. It's a good representation of the summer, because I feel like we've got some deep movies that kind of have some themes that are worth exploring and worth talking about, and then we've got some like classic blockbusters that's just kind of like good old fun.
Yeah, I kind of do like that. This like between these 4 movies, to your point, it's a good representation of the summer, because there are so many movies that are coming out in the summer. A lot of them, like a lot of the popular ones, get the most recognition, but there are also other movies that come out. Like I'm sure a lot of people knew about How to Train Your Dragon, and then for the horror fans, they knew about 28 Years Later. Probably if anyone was looking for a rom-com or are fans of Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans and Dakota Johnson, they probably knew about Materialist. And then I don't think a lot of people knew about The Life of Chuck. And for us, we were really excited for that movie because it was written, directed by Mike Flanagan, who's our boy. Like we'll see anything he does.
Yeah, we're Flana fans.
So
I heard I'm not even coining that. I saw there was this website. There's this guy I follow, and he reports on James Gunn news, and he screenshot one of his tweets, and they were asking about Mike Flanagan, and he said that I'm a Flana fan. I said, yeah, I am too, James.
I love that. That's so funny. That's so good. Yeah, and also this is like a good representation, these 4 movies, like kind of wrapping up the month of June, because as we go into next week, we got some big heavy hitters in next month, I should say. Big heavy hitters in July. And then for us specifically, it's going to be Superhero City when we got Superman in the second week of July, and then the last week of July it's Fantastic Four First Steps. So super excited about those 2 movies coming up.
Yeah, and I think it just shows that, like, this to me just shows that there's something for everybody. You got your rom-com, you got your horror, you've got like a drama, an existential drama, and then you've got a solid kids movie.
Oh yeah, I'm about to say, which was the kids movie? Yeah, it's
I don't know. It could be How to Train Your Dragon. No, you know what, Matt? I think it's 28 Years Later. That's what I'm gonna go take the babies to go see. We're all gonna go sit down and watch the alpha male with his member swinging around.
They were not shy of showing that multiple times.
No, you know it's funny, and we can talk about it. I'll bring it up during the review. Of like they had to shoot all those naked parts. They had to shoot with prosthetics due to laws shooting with
Hmm.
children. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, great. I mean, nobody, no need to scar the children, especially with that thing.
It's like, whoa.
It's like you are okay. We get it. You're an alpha.
And I'm sure that was part of the metaphors about that movie. But
I'm
again, we'll
sure.
we'll dive into that. All right, let's start with our first movie, shall we? The first movie we're gonna be talking about today in this episode is the live action How to Train Your Dragon. And what's interesting about this upcoming conversation is that Ernesto, to this day, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
has
Still,
not seen any of the animated movies.
no. I
No.
did it. I
Okay, so
did.
you went into this movie not even an inkling of the animated version. I coming into this movie seeing the entire trilogy. I've seen all the animated movies. So you're going in here with with a different perspective. That I wonder if that is what they want. Like they want fresh eyes on this because now you're about to talk about this movie as if you're seeing it for the first time, and I'm talking about this movie as if I've obviously that I've seen it as a trilogy, as a full story, in addition to seeing the animated version multiple times throughout it. So I'm
Well,
very curious on your thoughts on this movie.
just to be clear, like I thought it was fantastic. It's probably the best live action I've seen to date, and maybe it is there. It is because I don't really have I didn't really have an understanding of the story, and like we've
Hmm.
tried, like I've mentioned in past episodes, like we put it on in the background, and I've like caught bits and pieces, but this was the first time I was able to sit down and like watch the movie, the story from start to finish, and I thought it was great. I thought them building the link between Hiccup and Toothless, I thought was really cool. To me, my favorite part is actually him losing his leg, because now
Mm.
now there's this sense of they need each other. Like Hiccup needs Toothless and Toothless needs Hiccup. Like they both have, there's that codependency that they built between them, and like how that strengthens their bond in the end. Kind of all the stuff with his dad. I thought all the stuff with his dad was cool. Like, him wanting to be a better man, but not necessarily like carving his own path, not following the predetermined path of all the Vikings in the village, because and using his intellect to like build these things. I mean, it was really really cool, and like it actually had stakes. I mean, the fact that he lost his leg at the end of the movie, I thought I thought it was fantastic. I mean, in Toothless looked great on scene, on as part as the live action CG element. I thought it worked. All the dragons worked really really well. I mean, another one kind of very similar how I feel to Stitch. We're in this real world, but there's like CGI elements, so it makes more sense for that to be live action as opposed to when you think of like Lion King, which was has been explained to me as like National Geographic on camera with these things. Like like it's just like the only thing, it just looks different. It's just you get a different feeling watching both films. But I thought it was great. The score's good. There's really exciting action sequences. Um, and it was funny. Like it was just all around funny film. A lot of great moments. Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was great.
So I'm very conflicted with this movie, Ernesto.
Okay.
In the sense, hear me out. Like I agree with you. I really enjoyed this movie, but here's the thing. So it's different when you say it's a live action adaptation. Typically, in these most cases, because a lot of it we have it compared to Disney at this point, is that you don't often bring back the same people behind the camera. So in this case, like for the live action Lilo and Stitch, the director's different, the
Yeah.
writers are different, the actors are different. A lot about this movie was different. The only person or thing that they brought back from the live action Lilo and Stitch was Chris Sanders, who was the voice and co-director of Lilo and Stitch. He didn't direct the movie, but he was the voice of Stitch, and so they brought the the him as a voice actor. They brought him back, which makes a lot of sense because the voice of Stitch is very iconic, and you want to make sure you get that right. if you're going to do another movie like that. I understand that. And the same thing with The Lion King. They brought back James Earl Jones. At least I think they did, unless they just reused his voice again. I'm not entirely sure, but he is credited as returning as Mufasa. I mean, that again is another iconic voice. There's only one man that can do it, and the same goes for Darth Vader. No one else does it except for him. So like I get bringing back certain element into those things. But when you bring back the same writer director, when you bring back Gerard Butler, who voiced the character, and then now he's playing a live action version of that same character, and you bring back the composer to do what I feel is the exact same movie, like almost beat for beat. Like there's not a lot of changes between the animated movie and this movie. So when you bring back the same people to bring out the same movie, to give us the same exact movie, and it's still good, is it good? Because what I like about this movie was the same reasons why I like the animated version.
Mm.
So is a good movie because it's the same good movie?
Well, because I think it's because it is based off of something. The story, there's really not much like delineation he can take between the stories. Maybe being so close to it. I mean, he direct all three of the original trilogy? So
Yeah.
obviously, this franchise is very near and dear to his heart. And then isn't it based off a book series
I'm not sure if it's a book series, but it's based off of a book. Yes.
or based off of a book? But what that's what
Yeah.
how faithful is it to the book?
Oh, I have no idea. That part I don't know. Um, but what I yeah, to me, it's I walked out of that movie and there were still certain moments that even I didn't like tear up or anything, but you get a little bit of emotional in some of these scenes because they were also emotional in the animated version. So like it's been a while since I saw the movie. I did not go back and rewatch the animated version for this because I wanted to go in there a little bit fresh eyes since it's been a couple of years since I saw the animated version and now seeing this is like it hits the same beats. And there wasn't a lot of changes here. So like, and I still enjoyed it, but it's the same story. It's the same thing. So is do I like it because I like this story? Sure, but do I like it because I don't know. I'm just very conflicted about it. Mainly because it's the same people giving us the same product. And it's not in a sequel. It's not like another version of it. It's the exact same movie.
So that
So
so like is it like almost shot for shot, like almost identical? Like
it's you can I don't think it's shot for shot, but you can probably call it that. Like it even to the moment you called out where he lost his leg,
hmm
it even shared that same emotional beat where like he wakes up, he doesn't know where he is, Hiccup comes and wakes him up, and then he's like, "Oh, there's my cat. See, there's Hiccup right here."
Matt's cat
um,
making another appearance.
Another appearance. She loves it. I think she likes to do it every now and then. She didn't used to, but
Yeah.
now she's like, "Oh, you're busy?
Yeah.
No, you're not."
Love me.
Love me. But yeah, so even it shared the same emotional beat where like he gets out of the bed and the camera focuses on his legs and it takes a moment. And I remember that very vividly in the animated movie where he like gets he's like, whoa, like that's a thing. And that's the same thing for the audience. It's like, oh wow, he lost a leg after this journey. And then he can see him, and that's where the emotion comes in because he's like, whoa, I just lost my leg. I'm trying to stand, I'm trying to wake up, and then like the music is like really helping with the scene. And then he goes out and then he just sees like his whole village full of dragons and like everyone's embracing his ideas. It's like the emotion is there. It's literally shot for shot.
See, but I think as me as coming into it the first time, like I would have been upset if they hadn't given me that build up to learn that, because for me it's like when that happens, and I'm sure when you saw it the first time, like
Yeah.
that's an emotional moment. It's like, oh well, like he actually had some struggle, and like there was a cost, for him that is irreversible. Like he has to live with
Mhm.
this for the rest of his life, and I don't know, I liked it. I thought it was a great. It gave the ending more stakes.
Absolutely, it definitely did. I There was a moment we even went in the second movie when they released the trailer out for the second movie. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the trailer was like a teaser, and it was just him flying around with Toothless. And then once he gets off of Toothless, the camera pans up, and he's older. And I was like, "Whoa." Like, I don't know why, as a child, I thought that our animated characters needed to be the same.
Mm,
So when the movie when they pan up and he's like, some growth has happened. And I was like, "Oh, like, we are taking place years later, and he is now a more mature Hiccup."
mm,
Um and then the events of the second movie takes place, and it's like, I feel like this franchise, they don't treat it for, it's not for children. I believe this franchise is for families. They
mm.
are tailoring it to a slightly older audience, but also can be enjoyed by, like, children and adults. So, like, it's kind of gearing to, like, bring the whole family, and everyone's going to get something out of it, where I feel like some animated movies, like Super Mario Bros, is definitely geared to children.
Like
Like, the
just for
story's
kids,
very
yeah.
surface level, and there's not much going on there. It's just a lot of colors in the air, and then, like, it's a very simple story. But to your point with How to Train Your Dragon, there's definitely stakes here. There's emotion behind it. There's, like, nothing beats Hiccup flying toothless for the first time.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's such a pivotal, iconic scene. I mean, and especially when they pair it with that score. I mean,
Mm.
that song is so good. That song is
Y
literally I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but
I think it's
it's
called First Flight, or at
yeah,
least the song is called.
it's on my workout playlist. It's one of the scores I listen to. It's great. It's fantastic.
Oh, no, Test Drive, sorry. The score is called Test Drive,
Mm,
I believe. Um, but it's I walked out that again, I walked out of the theater just thinking, like, I really like that movie, but I've seen this movie. So do I like the movie because I like the movie? Like, is it a compliment to the live action version, or do I hate it because it is the movie? Like, you're making money for the exact same thing. Like, there were no changes. At least with Lilo and Stitch live action version, there were changes. So you can call it a different movie in a way. Like, a lot of the same, but a little bit of different. So, but there's definitely a lot you can pull out between the two movies. This one you can't. So, like, I know a lot of people that I've spoken to who have seen this movie, they're like, I like my live action, scene for scene, cut for cut." Like, they wanted it to be the same. As we already know, we talked about when we talked about Lilo and Stitch, that a lot of people didn't like the changes that they made with Lilo and Stitch. They wanted a carbon copy of what it was. And I think I go into these movies a little bit differently, because I do want something a little bit different and not just going in there watching the exact same movie. That being said, I liked this version. So
yeah.
to say that this is the best live action remake or adaptation, that you've seen, I can understand that, because it was a very well made live action remake.
Yeah, and then for me, and especially for me, it was a new narrative because I haven't,
Mhm.
I have very little context of the original one. But I mean, so then who are these movies for? Are they for
Exactly.
like
It's a great
it
question.
kind of is for everybody, but it also kind of isn't because like to your point, the whole like Lilo and Stitch being different, but this one being but the fact that this one is shot for shot the same and you are still like you have somewhat enjoyment on a story that you know very well. I mean,
Mhm.
that's gotta speak for something because
Yeah.
you're not getting all the shock value of learning the story the first time. So, but it gave you the same exact movie, but yet you weren't bored.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, obviously a lot of the narrative around it, even though the story is the same, now what enjoyment are you getting out of it? A lot of it is like, how is the CG look? Because this is now a live action setting. So you can appreciate the filmmaking aspect of it, of them basically rebuilding, not rebuilding, but building these live sets to feature these real life tangible moments rather than an animation form. It hits a little bit different. Um, and so, like, honestly, for me, even the beginning of this movie was really cool of a start out, but it was also an adjustment for me because I'm used to seeing these characters act and look a certain way. So now going into the beginning of this movie, I was like, okay, it's a little bit jarring because I'm used to seeing it one way, but now I have to embrace it in a live action setting.
Hmm.
Um, and it took me a minute to get there, but I really did enjoy it. The To your point, the hiccup, not hiccup, toothless, like the visual effects on that dragon looks gorgeous.
I mean, it
Like
was fantastic. It was great.
they spared no expense. And then even like the other dragons, like moments in there as well. Even the big dragon, the big at the very end.
Hmm.
Like all the dragons looked really, really cool. If there was a knock I had for this movie was I didn't really go in line with like I like Astrid. I thought she did a great job. Um uh the actress, what's her name?
Give me a second. Real quick.
Nico Parker. I thought she did a great job as Astrid. I was remember reading an interview from Dean DeBlois, who I think that's how you pronounce his last name, who did the original How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. I remember they said they casted her because like she gave the right amount of like roughness, but it doesn't come off as mean.
Mm.
And I can understand that being part of the character where he never wanted people to go in there hating her as a character. And so I think I can definitely feel that. Me watching this movie, I never hated her. But you never hated her in the animated version either. But you can tell that she's after a different goal than everybody else. She wants to be the leader. She wants to be top dog.
Yeah, you could tell
And
that
kind of
she's
embracing
driven.
that at the end.
Yeah, you can tell that she's driven. Like there's something else that's
Yes.
driving her. Well, you get a hint of that during the movie when she's talking to Hiccup about like, that he doesn't really want to be the leader, but it's something that you could
Right.
tell that it's like something that drives her. That's something that's
Yeah.
where she wants it, and that he's willing to just give it up, and it's like just literally laying in front of him, and it almost like she didn't understand who he was until after they go through everything together.
Yeah. So aside from those two, Astrid and Hiccup, I didn't care for the other side characters.
I thought it was funny.
I thought just they're just like bumbling idiots. They were in the animated movie, and they didn't make that change into live action of making them a little bit more, I don't know, dimensional. But they were just like, even like, hey, I need you guys' help for like the end journey. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
But they each got their
Don't
own
lie to
little
me. You don't need.
dragon, and everybody found their place.
Y-
It was cool. I don't know.
Yes.
It was cute. It was a. I thought it was a nice little. It gave Hiccup and Astrid people to play off of.
That's fair. That's a good point. The only other thing, again, and this is a knock for the animated and then them doing it again, the live action version, was I feel like it was like the most and the majority of the movie was about Toothless and Hiccup's journey as a bond, like them building their bond together. And I love seeing that interaction throughout. And then him going into like the training area and like learning what he learns from Hiccup, from Toothless, and then taking it to dragon training and like just finding alternative ways to like I wouldn't say defeat, but like I guess train these dragons more or less. And so but what I felt was like a very like harsh transition when all of a sudden like we get into like the threat of the movie, which is the dragon's nest. And like all of a sudden the story shifts. To me, it was a harsh shift between we're just learning how to, here's this bond between a boy and a dragon, and then all of a sudden we have this harsh shift where like we found the dragon's nest. That this is a big deal. And like I wish there was a little bit more going off. I know in the story they like I know Gerard Butler, like they were looking for it, so that was like in the behind the scenes and they just happened upon it. So it was there, but to me I just feel like that it was a hard transition when we got there. And like when we get to the dragon's nest. Like we're having a good time just flying with a dragon, all of a sudden it's like boom, here's a threat that we need to be worried about.
Well, to me it made sense because this was like one of the first real times that Hiccup's been like, this is because he's with Astrid, so
Mhm,
he's not as focused on flying Toothless around. So this is the first time
mhm.
Toothless has been able to fly free, like exactly how he wants. So naturally, he would go home. I don't know. It made sense to me.
Okay. Yeah, I just felt like it was kind of like came out of nowhere. Like we weren't like like it didn't. I guess to your point, like this. flying home, I guess, but we weren't even around that area, and all of a sudden we're just there, just out of nowhere. To me it just came out of nowhere. But again, it still served as a really exciting final act. I guess
Yeah.
it brought the stakes.
Well, it also this was our moment to learn more about the dragons.
Yeah,
Like this
yeah,
is the moment where okay, well, oh, this is where they live. Oh, well, they have this is their master that they have to serve, and because this is the moment where Astrid kind of turns. I mean, she has already started to get on his side, but I think her learning that the dragons are serving this like master dragon that's like
hmm
this like ruthless person that's like that is the cause for the reason they are the way that they are. I think it humanized them for her and for both of them really, because then they got
yeah.
to they got to they understood why they do the things that they do, that maybe it is because of this demon, like a demon dragon thing that's in there. I mean, I don't know, this massive dragon that's in there. To me, it made sense. I totally. I mean, I understood it. It made total sense to me.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think other than those like minor gripes, which again is the same beats as the animated version, it was still a good movie.
Yeah.
I think it served its purpose, for people who wanted to see another if people who want to see this movie again, or in your case, just see it for the first time. I guess in this case, like it's interesting to see or to hear like how many people really did not see the animated version. This is the first time they were seeing this movie, and it still was still able to capture what everyone loved about the animated version into this live action movie. And obviously they already got greenlit for a sequel. So I'm sure, do you have any interest of watching the animated versions, or are you just
I
gonna
do.
stick to live action?
I don't know. I think I'll probably go through and watch the full animated, or I know maybe I'll wait till the next one. I'm not totally sure, because like I have no drive to go watch the animated version because I just watched
Mhm.
the live action. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um,
I mean, you can live in this world of live action. I mean, at this rate, they're probably gonna do the trilogy.
Oh,
So
I mean, it's only if you're gonna do two, why not do three? I mean, what are you doing?
yeah,
What are we doing
what are we doing?
here?
You're leaving money on the table.
Make the movie.
You know you're gonna do it anyway. Come on, Dean Du Bois. You know you're gonna make your dragons. You already made 3 of them. Why not 6?
Why not make the three movies twice? Look,
To me, that's crazy. Like you've been with this franchise for I don't know 10 years, and you're like, you know what? I really want to do this again.
and then but then here's the other thing: to do the exact same thing again and not change anything. So you're like, think of something you made 10 years ago. Like I look at something, I'm like, man, I probably would have done this. I probably would have do
Yeah,
this. Like I like even just minor changes. Like the only change you made is the medium. Like you went from
yeah,
you went from
yeah,
cartoon to live action. That's like the main difference.
yeah. He had to like get up and go somewhere rather than sit in an office and animate, or however you. I don't know how you animated an animated. I don't know how you direct an animated movie. I to me, you just to me, I just see you go to different offices and like make decisions from there. But in this case, he had to actually go on set and like direct actors. I mean, sure, he did it for voice actors too,
Yeah.
but I think it's a little bit different. Like actually being somewhere that's real. Um, but yeah, and then obviously, whatever my feelings about the live action movies or anyone's live action thoughts about these movies, it doesn't matter because this movie made a lot of money.
Oh yeah, it sure
uh,
did.
quickly talking about the box office, this movie had a budget of $150 million, which surprisingly is cheaper than the animated movie, which I believe cost about. I'm gonna double check on that real quick. I believe the animated version. Come on, I believe the animated version cost about 160. So it's not that far off. But I just want to double check on that. How to Train Your Dragon animated. Come on, there we go. The budget for the first movie was $165 million.
Wow.
So so then the live action version was 150. So they made it for 15 million less. The worldwide gross of the first animated movie was $494.9 million. So now looking at the live action version, at the time of this recording, this movie opened to about $84 million, I believe. Let's
Yeah.
see.
84
Yeah,
cents. Yeah.
$84 million. And so now, I'm getting different numbers here, Ernesto, than you are.
Uh, Let me refresh the page.
There you go. And now we're getting the same numbers.
That is
Um,
so weird.
movie's making money
look how much
as we
money.
speak.
Look how much money it made in the time I refreshed the page.
All right. So in the case of the live action movie, the movie opened to $84.6 million. At the time of this recording, which is now roughly 2 weeks, 2 weeks after its release, domestically it's made $171.8 million. Internationally, it has made $199.6 million with a grand total of $371.4 million. So it's already creeping up to go on par of what the original animated movie made, box office wise. But I would say that as far as a return, you've already doubled your investment at
Yeah.
350. With if your budget was 150, you're already doubled that, by going over 300. I can see this movie easily hitting close to the $500 million range.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, it's gonna stay in the theaters for a while. And that's the thing. There's so many good movies out right now.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know. I see this one being in there for a while because it's just a good family movie, good summer family movie. Like, just go in the afternoon, watch, pop it in. It's kind of good for all. It's really good for all ages. So I mean,
Yeah.
it has that rewatchability. I think what's really interesting is how much better it's doing internationally than it is
Hmm.
domestically. I think that's interesting. Like, 53% of its revenue is international.
Yeah. And you make a good point about being a good family movie. Aside from Elio, which we'll talk about a little bit next week, of Pixar's new movie, it didn't do all that great in the box office. And we saw that what happened, with Elemental, and that was a great movie. And then they're calling Pixar's Elio to be a really good movie as well.
Yeah,
But opening weekend did not turn out like impressive numbers, but over time it did well.
yeah,
So, but aside from like How to Train Your Dragon and Elio, those are the only two family movies that are out right now. All the other movies are either superhero based, that's coming up in the next few weeks, either superhero based. We have Jurassic World Rebirth, which is more of an action movie. We have Megan 2.0, which is more of a horror, action movie. This has the second movie is kind of uh, bending genres a little bit, and then F1, which is more of a probably an action movie as well. So like there's not a lot of family movies going into July. So I think How to Train Your Dragon and Elio will probably do really well in July because this is something that's still going to be in the theaters for families to go watch, not necessarily the other movies that are on the horizon for the next month. So I think, like I said, I think it's going to continue doing well in the box office. It's already being greenlit for a sequel, so it doesn't have to prove anything. It's
yeah.
doing really well. But with that, your final thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon?
I mean, I thought it was a solid film. I mean, I enjoyed going. I kind of enjoyed going into it blind. So I think maybe
Mhm.
maybe I'll just go through. I'll do the whole live action as its own thing, just so I can have an untainted view of all the films. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think I want to go into it like because it almost seems like they made these movies to be enjoyed separately. Like you can watch the animated separately, and you can watch the live action separately, and you're because it's gonna be the same thing. The only thing that's gonna be different is the medium. So, but I don't want to lose that element of the story before I see the other ones. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's how I view The Last of Us. Like, I had no it's basically the same thing. Obviously, they've made changes between the video game and the show, but I value the medium of excuse me, of television over video games. And a lot of people praise The Last of Us for a story. So I would rather continue my experience through the television medium not being tainted by me either playing or watching what happens, even though it's very easy for me to happen to see what happens next in The
Mm.
Last of Us, as this the same is easier for you to go see what happens next in the live action, in the animated Dragons franchise. But if it's not spoiled for us at this point, I doubt it's going to come across our table
That that's true.
at that point. So you might as well just enjoy it as if how you're watching it, and that's the way I see it. So I completely understand that. 4 star, 5 star rating.
I'm gonna go 4.5. I mean, it's a solid for me. It's a solid. It's a really good story. I mean, I
Wow,
mean, I thought the action sequences were exciting, but remember, I'm coming and see where I think
it's true.
yours might be lower because I feel like you've already seen it, so
Yes.
you're watching it as I've already seen this movie, whereas me, it's like this is brand new and fresh. So it's almost they're making it for an updated audience, and it is I think now my question is tonally wise. Do you think like is the animated one like a little bit more kiddish? Is it a little bit more PG or animated, or is it kind of on par with this one?
It it's on par. Like, I'm
Okay.
telling you, it's the same movie.
Wow. Okay.
It hits the same emotional beats. I mean, the movie, I wouldn't say it's ahead of its time, but I would say that it was a definitely a more mature DreamWorks movie coming out in 2010,
Yeah.
where in the last couple of years, you've had your Shreks, your Madagascars, like, those were, like, the big movies that were coming out of DreamWorks, and then they came out with How to Train Your Dragon, and I feel like that this was the first Pixar level movie that DreamWorks had came out with. Like, this is the franchise they took seriously, and the
Mm,
storytelling was strong. And I honestly, not since like How to Train Your Dragon was like the thing that stood out in DreamWorks until, in my opinion, The Wild Robot, where
mm.
like that movie just, man, that crushed me.
That movie was so damn good.
I was so good. Like, and that's like a shock coming out of DreamWorks of like you're giving this level of storytelling in your studio when I feel like you're more in line with like in the same year you came out with like I don't even know what movies. Like a few months later you came out with Dogman, like a clear kids movie
Yes.
based off of a child's book, and like you're leaning into that and that's perfectly fine, but like the same studio that brought you Dogman gave you the Wild Robot, so like they're appeasing to all audience here.
That's true. That's true.
But to your point, yes, I was gonna rate it slightly lower, even though I've seen this movie before. I was gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars.
Okay. I'm gonna
Like, it
give
was
it.
really enjoyable even though I've already seen it.
And I think to its credit, like the fact that a lot of people have seen this movie and I feel like the initial inclination with live actions is to just immediately shit on them.
Yeah,
But even if you've seen it, like the view I feel like is mostly positive.
yeah, and I mean, I think you're right. I think a lot of people enjoyed this movie, and I think it also, in a way, subverted the expectation of, "Oh, I'm gonna walk in here and see a shitty live action remake," and this movie kinda proved you wrong.
Yeah.
Like, no, they can be done right when you do it the exact same way.
Don't fuck it up.
Don't fuck it up. Any other words before we move on?
No, I'm good.
All right. Now let's move on to our next film, which is 28 years later, directed by Danny Boyle, who did 28 Days Later, Transporting, Slumdog Millionaire, won an Oscar for that. 127 Hours, and Steve Jobs, written by our boy Alex Garland, who also wrote 28 Days Later, Ex Monica. Nope, still,
Machina.
still can't say it now. Say it again.
Machina.
Machina, there you go. Annihilation, Men, Civil War, and Warfare. The movie stars Rico Haynes, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Jodie Comer, and Ralph Fiennes. Ernesto, your thoughts on 28 years later? And if I'm not mistaken, you saw the first one, did not see the second one, and then you saw this one.
Correct. Yeah. So and I actually saw this one first. I think
Oh,
so. Yeah. Well, let me take a step back. So I
okay.
saw the original one when it came out. What year did that come out? 2000. What is it?
Two.
2002. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember seeing it when it came out, and I was like, oh, it was fine. I barely remember it. So then I rewatched it this time, but I ended up seeing 28 years later before I finished the first one. So I watched half of the first one, watched 28 years later, and then finished the first one after I already watched this one. I really did like this movie.
There was a hesitation.
No, because I did.
Well, I mean,
because it's just I feel like it's different than like most zombie movies,
Yes.
where like it was more of like a family drama set in a zombie universe. Like this one, the first one, I feel like the first one deals with more zombie elements. There's a little bit of that in this one, but I feel like this is more of like the the trauma within this family in this universe, with like a sprinkle in of like, oh, here's this thing about the infected, and here's this thing about the infected. Whereas it, as opposed to the first one, it's like escape the infected and like having to deal with people like coming to terms in this new reality, and kind of how we move forward with that, like when they go to that military base and they
Hmm.
think that they're safe, but they're actually not, because the guy has promised the women to his soldiers, and then it becomes like Killian Murphy's mission to like take these guys out. You know what I
Yeah, it
mean?
turned very quickly into like a kind of a different movie. Like once they got to the military base.
Yeah, once they got to the base, it turned into like this action horror film, which I was fine. It had some good, like there were some good set pieces, and I feel like this one had that too, with some of the alpha male chases and like them trying to escape the infected during different scenes, like that bridge sequence when he's chasing them,
Mm,
and they've got like the fire bolt ready, and hit like just impales him in the chest, and it's like you get this like back and forth of like, are they gonna make it? Like you don't like this is like almost in the beginning of the movie, so you're like, you almost can guarantee that they're gonna make it, but they still were able to like heighten the excitement in that moment where it was like shit's getting real,
yeah,
what's
but
about to
but
happen.
honestly, like it's the apocalypse, so like you don't know if they're gonna make it or not. Like they could have front loaded a lot of the previews of like, yeah, Aaron Taylor Johnson's in this movie, and then kill him like 10 minutes in. Like
He's dead.
you don't know. But also to your point, that bridge scene, that alpha male was just like
Oh yeah.
he
Like
was booking it.
very single track mode, which I thought was an interesting evolution of the infected, because like they could have easily just wrote them as they stayed the same, but it's almost like
Mhm.
this understanding of like how viruses mutate, like, and like you get different versions, and it grows into like that what was there before, it grows into other things. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting addition to it. Like to me, it didn't seem that far fetched. Like, oh, 30 years later, who's to say that infected, like the disease doesn't mutate to make them smarter, to now where you've got different branches of infected. Like you've got the fat, stupid, lazy ones, who like just apparently just crawl on the ground, or you get or you get like, the really smart alpha males who like can control like a group of them to do his bidding. I mean, how creepy is it? Like that shot of him when he's just standing on the hill by the tree
Oh,
and
it's a
he's just
great
watching
shot
him. I
though.
mean, that is a great shot, but it's like, but in that moment, like they're not telling you what's happening, but you can like that moment just tells you so much, where he's just standing there and just watching him, and like you can just feel the calculation, and it's like, how terrifying is it to have a zombie that is like making calculated assessments, like almost like a general. Like that is fucking scary. To
Yeah,
me,
and
that is
also because not
terrifying.
only that, like you see him just on the hillside, right?
Yes.
And Aaron Taylor Johnson is like, he's like, "Oh shit, we gotta go." And like almost within the same breath that they gotta go, you see then his horde coming over the hillside, and like you're in trouble. Like there's no way they're getting out of this.
No.
Uh, like they barely got out of there alive. And also because they're moving so fast, it's like it's very like I liked how they shot the action in this movie.
Yeah.
Like it's very in your face, very close up, very visceral. And I think it kind of honed in on the horror aspect of that as well. I never saw this movie as a horror movie though. Like I never associated this movie as horror. I feel like they have horror elements, but not really like a traditional horror movie.
I mean, Matt, I mean, let's just, the opening sequence of this film is horrific. Like the little boy who, Jimmy, he's having that birthday party or whatever, or
Oh
sleepover,
yes,
and he just walks, like they burst in, and these zombies just like murder these little kids. I don't
Yeah,
know what is not horrifying about that, but that pretty much checks the horror box for me.
that's fair. It was very horrific. So before we continue with 28 years later, I had watched this entire franchise in a span of 6 hours.
That's right.
So I had not watched any of these movies prior to like a few days ago. And I literally woke up in the morning, I saw 28 days later, and then I played 28 weeks later, and then I got off my chair and I went to the theater and I watched 28 years later. So it's very much like right one after the next. And I will say probably not the best because by the time I got to 28 years later, and especially when it got some of the slower parts, I was like, all right, I've been living this world for a minute. I should have spaced them out a little bit, uh, but I will say that I'm pretty sure that 28 Days Later did a lot of new things for its time,
Hmm.
that made it a cult classic. And I was walking in that movie and like kind of, or I guess walking out of that movie, kind of feeling like I've seen this before, so I wasn't really that impressed. But at the same time, I'm sure this movie was the start of a lot of different things we've seen in like zombie horror. So like I have that recognition that like I didn't enjoy this movie 100%, but I recognize that I'm looking at this movie, you know, 20 plus years removed from its original date, and I have seen many other zombie films that could have replicated what they did in this movie. That being said, going into 28 weeks later, I really like the intro. I know you said you haven't seen it, but the beginning of that movie for me was like really intense. And I liked where they went with it for the first 30 minutes of this movie. I was almost disappointed with the fact that once there was a certain element that there was like a small twist in the movie that they completely negated 5 minutes later, and then it turned into like a survival story. Like
Mm.
we have to survive. And I was like, man, we started off so strong, in my opinion, that we just went back to the traditional like zombies are attacking, we have to survive. And then to me it got boring.
Mm.
Where I give now going back to 28 years later, I give this movie a lot of credit for kind of embracing like, we weren't in the same boat again of we're trying to survive. Like, we are in that sense, but I think we're seeing a different type of zombie apocalypse where they're adapting to this environment, very similar to The Walking Dead to some degree. Like, they're no longer trying to look for a cure, like, this is the way of life,
Hmm.
and they hunt these creatures, um, for reasons I don't know, to be honest with you. Like, why are they venturing out to go hunt these creatures? Like, they're not bothering them over on the other side of the bridge.
Well, I think they're not hunting them. They're scavenging for resources on the mainland. Like,
Mm,
because remember he goes into that house and he was like teaching him how to scavenge. He's like, I don't think there's anything here, but this is, let's look to see what we can find. And then
yeah.
he talked when they talked about seeing the doctor's fire, um, that it
Mhm.
was because that they had already scavenged that area and they were having to they were having to scavenge to go further and further out. So I think it was just part of their scavenging. Like,
Mm.
it's not necessarily to hunt these things, but obviously when they encounter them, they're gonna have to take care.
Yeah,
They're gonna have to handle them.
very true. Yeah, I feel like there were a lot of moments in this movie that I enjoyed, but I would say as a whole, I kind of felt it was a little boring.
Mm. It was slow. It was definitely
Yeah.
slow, but I think it's because to me it was more of like it was this family drama, like
Mm,
betrayal, of like, of, dealing with death and sick family members. I think, and like I think it was more about coming to terms with that we still, even in this post-apocalyptic world, there's still like very human stories that we have to deal with. Even I mean, that's something that could have happened today. Somebody who's cheating on their sick wife, um, and then like basically like you propped your son up to this lie to make him feel bigger than he is. Like, how many other dads wouldn't feel inclined to do that to kind of make their child feel better, or to like make them feel accomplished. And like his son, like not even really appreciating it, because he's like that, like the whole time he's like, well, that was a lie. He goes,
Hmm.
oh, hush, 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 son. And you know, he's this is supposed to be a moment he's celebrating him, and then his dad runs off with this woman, and then he finds him cheating on his mom. Because in that moment, you see the tonal shift in his
Yes.
in Spike's character. Spike is his name. Yes, in Spike's
Yeah. Yeah.
character, when he goes to his mom and he immediately just starts taking care of her. I mean, it comes to that moment where he pulls a knife on his dad. Like, and at no point or
Yeah.
we're talking about zombies at that point, but it's this interesting, intriguing family dynamic that we're getting to learn. To me, that's what I really, really enjoyed about it. And the whole bone temple and like talking about memento mori, remembering death. I think to me, all that stuff was super intriguing because it at a certain point it's not all about like we've already passed the point of like trying to survive the day. 28 years later, the humans who are here have figured it out. So now this is our glimpse of somewhat of a return to normalcy. We have this island that's like established this world of like rebuilding society, you know?
Yeah. I mean, to your point, I never really thought of it that way. That this is essentially a family drama.
Yeah.
This is a family story in this post-apocalyptic. I wouldn't call it world though,
Oh, but
because
yeah.
as we notice, this is very a contained situation, which I honestly wish they would explored a lot more. Like, I would love to see an outside perspective into this world because clearly this guy is showing like the person who's working for the military is showing this kid his iPhone and showing a normal person like, "Oh, this is my girl." And he's like, "What's wrong with her lips?" It's like, "What's wrong with her face?" And like that brought some levity a little bit, but I was like, "Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's right. This is still an isolated incident that it almost feels like that this is like, "Oh, we don't go over there." Like, it was almost treated in a way like a third world country. It's like, "Oh, we're fine over here." But, like, wherever they are, I think it was either Ireland or
I
Scotland
think
or
it's
somewhere
Scotland.
maybe in
Yeah.
the UK. Where was it?
Isn't it? I thought it was. They're like on a Scottish island, right? Something like that.
Yeah, they said they eradicated from continental Europe, while the British Isles remain indefinite in quarantine. Okay, so I guess that's where they're calling it. So the British Isles remain in indefinite quarantine, a survivor community. Yeah, yeah. So they're in the British Isles.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, they're isolated here, and I don't know if they're not allowed to go out there, if they even know that there is a civilized, like, different world outside of their bubble, or they're just aloof to the fact that this is their new normal, and the people from the outside do not go in. As I said, they're in indefinite quarantine. That part I found really interesting that I wish we would have explored a lot more about of how like at least at the maybe at the beginning
Mm.
of like kind of establishing that this is a um an area where it's outside of the world and people live here and we understand that and we have no desire to take these people out and into a civilized humanity. Instead, they're just being raised in uh, this environment. But yet there is a military presence there. But to what end, I don't know. Like, why are they there? Like, why was he there? Like, to what? Save them? Doesn't seem like it.
What do you mean? Like
Like the military guy.
in the
Like,
first
what was
movie?
his?
In the first
No,
movie?
no, 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 no. In the new movie, 28 years later,
Hold on. What military guy? What are you talking about?
the
There's no.
guy that was showing the kid his iPhone.
Did I miss? I don't. Did I miss that? I don't think.
Did you? That's a pretty big part, in my opinion. There was this I mean, the military guy only lasted, like, a few minutes, but, like, he saved them from like, okay, this is the moment where the kid takes his mom, they go over the bridge, and they're trying to find Ralph Fiennes. In the middle of all that,
Oh
they
yes, yes, yes. You're
yeah,
right. Okay, I remember now. I it
okay,
because then that guy gets his head ripped off by the alpha. Yes, yes,
correct,
correct.
yes.
Okay, yes,
So,
yes.
my question is, why was their military presence there to begin with? They are aware that this area is a quarantine zone, they're here for a reason, but they're not here to extract them. So they're there for a different reason, in which I don't know. But also, like, they are accepting of the fact that there is a society that lives in this area that we are not, uh, that we're just letting them live there and have a lifestyle over here.
Well, I wonder if they are like maybe they're just like scavenging. They're just trying to figure out what the landscape looks like. Because maybe where they're at, things are normal to where they have enough resources to come in and probably evaluate and like recapture this land. Because I mean that if you think of all that animals, that's all. I mean, there's so much all that land that's there. Like
Yeah.
if I mean, who wouldn't want to try to reclaim it if you have the resources? So I
True,
wonder.
but I guess they would have to kill every zombie presence that's there, or the infected, I should say.
Yeah, cleanup
Yeah.
costs.
Clean up, yeah. But that, I mean, I honestly, I wish that was not maybe the whole movie, but I wish we explored a little bit of an outside looking in perspective to see what this world is. Some people would argue that that's the novelty of it. We don't know what's happening on the outside of this area, and that's the better part. We are isolated to the stories that are happening in this environment and less about what's happening on the outside world.
I
But
think
me
we're
personally, I would love to know it's how the outside world is thinking about this whole situation.
I think that's the point. 'Kay, I mean, we're subjected to the information that our I feel like we know as much as our characters know. So like we're
Yes.
not we're not cutting to like a general somewhere far off without our main character. Like we stay with our characters and I feel like we learn what they learn. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I don't want that. I want to know more about this world, which makes it interesting because I think on the outside looking in, it definitely looks like this is a worldwide,
Hmm.
like this is a post-apocalyptic world. When actuality is a post-apocalyptic island. It's not the world. It's just a small, and maybe not small-ish area in the British Isles, like in the it says a continental Europe. So like it's hitting a decent part of the world, but not as much where other people are affected by it. Like I'm sure people in the United States are probably looking on the news 28 years later about, oh yeah, this area in the UK got infected, and then 28 years later it's still infected. We don't travel there anymore because it's infected.
Like
Like
oh that place is quarantined. We can't go there.
exactly. So like even I guess you can in some cases think of it like Chernobyl. Like now
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
allowed to kind of travel there and like be very cautious of being in that area if you want to tour it. But it's probably advised it's still heavily the radiation's still over there.
Yeah.
So probably still advised not to go there. And I feel like this is kind of a similar sense of like here's this event that happened and this is like the result, like, there's still a society that lives in this quarantine zone that we're just letting happen. And I feel like that's where I'm thinking, like, there's a lot more interesting things they could be discussed in this world, yet we are just staying isolated to these stories. Again, not a bad thing, but just me wanting more from the story. I would love to see that explained, if ever.
Mm. Or maybe I know we've talked. There's already like two more sequels planned,
Hmm.
and maybe we might get some exploration there. But I felt like they were able to give us enough here because we instead of over inundating us with like world building information, they let us sit on the whole. We got to learn about alphas, which I thought was an
Yeah.
interesting evolution, and then also this like zombie baby that was born, this
Oh, that's
infected
right.
woman, basically like Ellie's mom from The Last of Us. She gets infected and she has a baby, and that baby is not infected. So now, are we
Mhm.
looking at somebody who's immune to the virus because they were protected by the placenta, but yet they probably have the immunity? They probably have something that the virus probably doesn't even bother them. So like is like to me that's super interesting. Like so that's the next evolution of like understanding. Oh well, maybe there's not a cure, but nature is could be providing us with the answer to eradicate this.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, if they never had saved the child, I'm assuming that the mother, the other infected, the alpha could have just bitten the baby and then it just growing up to be a zombie baby, an infected baby. But now knowing the fact that they, when given birth, they're just as normal as anyone else. They're not infected. Like, I wonder moving forward if this is, and also now even thinking about it, are we looking in this as this story as a part one of a three-act structure?
I think
Which
so.
definitely by the end of it definitely feels that way, knowing that there's another movie that we just discovered minutes before recording this podcast, that there's 28 years later, The Bone Temple, that comes out January of 2026 and is directed by Nia DaCosta, not Danny Boyle, but it's still written by Alex Garland. And this movie was filmed back to back to 28 years later. So we're getting that movie in a couple of months. So we're already getting a sequel to the story that we just watched. It's starring the same people, in addition to Killian Murphy, who was in the first film. So I think we're, to your point, we could be getting a full
Yeah.
explanation, if not more world building within this world quicker than we think. And then we also found out that 28 years, another sequel is also in development, and we can probably get that as soon as 2027 or the end of 2026. So already a trilogy in line. So we could be reviewing this movie as a one, like, even though 28 days, weeks, and years later were all kind of standalones within this universe, but now it definitely feels like that 28 years later, the upcoming sequel and the sequel that's in development are going to be very tied together.
Yeah, I totally agree. But even the ending, so like how the movie, how this, what the kind of the playthrough here is him and his dad go for his first scavenge, which he takes him younger than than the community has typically suggested, but he
Mhm.
felt that his son was ready. They went out, they got stuck out there and they had to deal with the alpha, and then they come back, and that's where we get that bridge sequence. During the celebration is when Spike catches his dad cheating on him. He comes back, and I feel like this is where that turning point for Spike is, where I feel like that is the moment where he becomes his own man.
Mhm.
Is in that moment he decided that he needed to take care of his mom and kind of like be his own person. His dad goes off, and then he takes his mom to the mainland after learning that there's a doctor who might be able to help them. And then, they go off, they encounter different things, and then that's when they meet up with the military. And then that's when the guy gets his head ripped off, which I thought was a crazy scene. We're on the train,
Yes.
and he just fucking, like, he literally just separates his head and spine from his body, and he just walks around with it.
Yeah, it's like, "My prize, bitch."
And then, in all his well endowed self, like he was a true alpha male. I'll say that.
Yeah.
He
No,
was,
they definitely showed all of it.
yeah,
Every last inch of it.
every last inch swinging to the
Mhm.
ground, like
Swinging around. Not just once, though. We saw it multiple times on multiple alphas.
Yes, yes. And then, they're running away with the baby. What I thought was interesting is that, like, how Ralph Fiennes' character just like takes him out with the dart. Yeah, I just didn't understand. Like, it took me a minute to get that he just wanted to coexist with them. But, because especially since he's surrounded by death with the Bone Temple, and like kind of living his life by the ideal of memento mori, to remember this whole death
Mhm.
memorial. I mean, he takes the other guy's skull, and he burns it and boils it down, and then has him have the skull added to the pot. But I do think that was an interesting point apart of the film, is like this may just be a skull, but this is like, and kind of understanding like each skull is like somebody's ideas. Somebody, like, each skull is a life. There's a brain in there, like, that lived a life and did things and had ideas and goals and things they wanted to do. And, like, I mean, it's morbid, but in this world, I felt like it was an interesting way for him to. It seemed like it humbled him in that moment, because, like, yeah, he wasn't about killing all the other zombies. He was said that he had been watching him, as you mentioned, for a couple years. So it's like he has found a way to coexist. Like, he's more of an observing as opposed to killing, because he could have like taken him out. I mean, he like stopped this guy dead in his tracks. And he could have
Yeah.
easily taken him out, but they use that moment to get away. Even later, when he rips through the ground and starts smashing the doctor through the roof of the ground, even then he doesn't like kill him. He just knocks him out.
And yeah, I mean, you bring up a lot of good points that he doesn't want to kill him, but to that, you see him. We see how he is treated, like the death of his mother. Like he like accepts the fact that he is like kind of this guiding this kid, and he is how do I say this? He is he's surrounded by death, and it is a little bit morbid, but I think he has a clear understanding of how life works. And even though he doesn't want to kill anybody, but he respects the process of life and death.
Yes.
And I think that comes around in a way when we are referring to the death of his mother and accepting it and recognizing it and like making this memoriam. Like, where do you want your mother to be in this? And it's like, oh, putting her in the tippy top is like it's the meaning of life is life and death, and like learning to accept that. And I don't know what that means as far as his character moving forward, if there's anything moving forward, but like clearly he did not want to be part of the island and wants to be separated from the mainland to be one with death, I guess. Uh I think to me that brought a very philosophical way of looking into this whole movie of like and kind of to your point, humanizing the story. Like the mother didn't die out of the death of zombies. She was just sick and she had cancer. And then, it's a very beautiful death at the end of this, rather than like accepting it, rather than just being viciously murdered by an infected. And I'm not sure, like trying to find a cure for her sickness rather than maybe in other films trying to find a cure for the infected, but both come to no end because death is death, and recognizing that.
Well, I
Uh,
think that was the whole that's the whole that's like the irony of it is that we're in this post-apocalyptic world where literally everybody's job is to evade imminent death from these
mhm,
infected, but yet the one thing they couldn't escape was a battle with cancer, and like
yeah,
without even having the equipment or medicine even anywhere near available or ready to even combat it, let alone eradicate it. So it's
right.
like what do you do? You're faced with an impossible task. Like there's literally nothing you can do but face death and like come to terms with it. There was no other option.
No, and in a way that to me that scene was beautiful. Uh, kind of just seeing how it all plays out, and I think it was another turning point for Spike
Hmm.
of seeing him kind of become a man
Yeah.
that way, accepting death, and kind of the first turning point was like going against what his father wanted to do. He's like, "I'm a better man than you. I'm going to take care of my mother when you're not taking care of your own wife." I'm gonna do something about it. And then goes to the mainland, goes through all these trials and tribulations, only to find out that she's going to die and accepting that. And then also taking the responsibility of getting back on his own with a child to drop it off and be like, hey, this is your problem. I need you to take care of this baby, but I'm not ready to go back. And I'm basically going to be living out here.
Hmm.
Which then went to the turning point of the movie where I found a little odd of like all of a sudden you had like these Power Rangers going out and killing zombies, which I thought was very an interesting way of ending the film. Obviously, teasing that there's a sequel. But I don't know how do you feel about that ending?
It completely threw off the entire. It almost like it wasn't a part of the film. Like
Hmm.
it's almost like it would have been better off if like you rolled the credits and then have that be an epilogue, like a post credit scene leading into the
Yeah,
next one. Because like tonally it's just different. Like they just start coming off, they're laughing and doing all these weird acrobatics, and I feel like it was kind of more of the fantastical like zombie shit that you would see of like oh
yeah.
let's make them kill zombies, but let have them be breakdancing and use their weapons and make funny quips to each other. I mean, it was like a totally different movie, right?
Yeah, it really was. You know what I didn't get the correlation. I was just reading like the plot. I had no idea that apparently we were supposed to know that the kid in the beginning of the movie who escaped like
Yeah.
the the initial invasion was the same the person who was leading the zombie acrobat team.
Yeah. Yes. Zombie acrobat. Yeah. No, I got that. I totally got
I
because
had I had did not know that until a few minutes ago when I'm reading this. Like, wait, Jimmy's the kid. Is like that's the same guy. I had no idea.
well, yeah, because remember when he's running away and he goes to the priest, and after the
Yeah.
priest like basically like wants to become an infected and like makes
Mhm.
those things start all throwing up in his, which was like just really gross. Like they just
Really gross.
like he just like started ingesting all their whatever. He gives him his cross. Remember, he gives him the cross
Yes.
before he runs away, and at the end, that guy has a cross, but he has it upside down and he's holding it. It was like one of the last
Mhm.
things you see. And
Yeah.
actually throughout the whole movie, I was thinking that Aaron Taylor Johnson was a little boy. I was like, oh,
Yes.
this is why he grew up. I was like, I wonder why, like they showed us him. Like, when did he dye his hair? But makes sense
But
now. It
now
wasn't him. He was leading the zombie acrobat team.
yeah, I honestly thought it was also Aaron Taylor Johnson, but I guess that's the twist, I guess. So I'm curious now with the sequel being called The Bone Temple, if we're going to be focusing more on Ralph Fiennes' character. Obviously, we know Aaron Taylor Johnson's coming back. What's going on with the acrobat team with Jimmy? And we know that Cillian Murphy's coming back. So, like, a lot of interesting things going into the sequel. And though, as a whole, I didn't really care too much about the story of this franchise, but there's enough intrigue there, and especially some of behind the scenes stuff. We know that the first movie was made by consumable Sony camcorders, and now even with this movie was made entirely off of iPhones. And so it's kind of cool to kind of see that like that type of ingenuity.
Man,
Like
look at
look at
that.
that. They're covering all of the alphas. And like it's really cool to see this rig just kind of being filmed off of iPhones. I remember reading an interview and he was saying that he liked using that. One, kind of paying homage to how he did it with the first film, but also like he said it was so easy. Like we were filming in all these like locations and it would have been awful to carry all this gear around in these like locales. It was much easier for us and also saved us a lot of time to just carry iPhones over to the next scene in this like this grand landscape that they're in. They film it. They finished filming in like 2 months. Like the filming was not long at all.
I mean, it shows that filmmaking is more accessible. You know, if you don't go through you don't have to go through all that, having all that massive equipment. Like it can be done
Hmm.
on a much smaller scale and
Yeah.
still make
And
a good
speaking of
amount of
which,
money.
sorry.
And I was saying, and still make like a decent amount of money.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I mean, this movie had a fairly decent opening. So the movie cost about $30 million. I'm sorry, the movie had a budget of $60 million, and it opened to about $30 million. It's funny that you refreshed.
I just had to make. I wanted to make sure in case they got me again.
Yeah, so the movie had a budget of $60 million, which compared to the last few movies, the first movie had a budget of 8 million and it made about 80 million. Then the second movie had a budget of about 15 million and it made about 75, so close enough. And then this movie had a budget of 60 million and opened to about $30 million. And now at the time of this recording, it has a domestically it has made $36.4 million. Internationally, it has made $30 million and it has a worldwide gross of $66.4 million. So just 1 week after its release, it's still within the opening weekend, about to go into its second week. Not that bad that it's already made back its budget worldwide. I'm sure it can make a sizable profit for the end. And for a franchise that has not been looked at in multiple years, it's a pretty good chunk of change and it's pretty inexpensive to make too. So and now that again, this movie is not suffering that if our sequel is going to be made, we know one's coming out in a mere couple of months.
Mhm.
So it's interesting to see how this franchise kind of grew and see where they want to take this story. But with that, Ernesto, your final thoughts on 28 years later and your
So
5-star rating.
I surprisingly really enjoyed the movie. Like I felt like there was a lot there that beyond all the zombie stuff that made it enjoyable, which like that's not what you think. You think you're gonna go. You don't expect to walk into a zombie movie and get this like kind of layered family drama that you have
Yeah.
to contend with. But I felt like they were able to balance all those things effectively. Like Alex Garland clearly wrote a really strong script. It was good. I think, and I'm on board for the next one, 100%.
Yeah, I feel like for me, this movie did run a little slow. There were moments that I was bored. Like, I feel like the tonal shift of him taking his mom and then like we're just kind of going through the mainland was least like it definitely took like a slow burn after what I felt like was an exciting first half. And then when we focus a little bit more on the family drama, it kind of slowed the movie down a little bit until we get to Ralph Fiennes when we get some of the philological what's the
Philosophical.
philosophical, yes. That type of vibe, and then I was a little bit more interested in it, and then I was a little bit confused of how the movie ended, but, now we know that there's a sequel coming out, so I guess I just have to take it for what it is, and, like, more is coming very soon, so don't harp on it because it's gonna be continued in a couple of months, so,
Yeah,
uh,
I that's fair. I'm gonna go 3.5.
3.5? Okay, I'll meet you there. I think upon like, when I walked out of it, I'm thinking, like I was like, 2.5. Like,
Wow, two and a
yeah,
half.
when I walked out, but I had some little bit more time to think about it. There were some really cool moments in here, and having this conversation with you as well, it kind of made me enjoy the movie a little bit more than I thought I did originally coming out. So yeah, 3.5 is a good vibe for me. I can meet with a 3.5.
All right,
Um,
all right.
but yeah, I mean, obviously we're on board. I mean, if Alex Garland is still writing, I think I'm still coming to the theater.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. He
Yeah,
writes a good script.
and also Nita Costa, she came out with Candyman, the 2021 kind of remake sequel. And then she also came out with The Marvels too, which wasn't my favorite movie from the MCU, but those are two solid films. And
Candyman
now
was
seeing her
pretty
take and
solid.
see how she does the sequel 28 years later, I'm interested to see how that all turns out.
Yeah, we've seen her do horror. She can handle horror and thriller. So, and if the end of this movie gives any indication of what the vibe is, I feel like the next one is going to be more of that world building. It's going to be
Yeah.
more like almost like because look at Weeks Later. Weeks Later is from what you sound like is kind of like that, and it's directed by a different director. And I think I read that Danny Boyle is going to pick up the one after that one.
Oh,
So
interesting.
so then
Okay.
like it almost like that's kind of like maybe he only wants to hit like the main like certain story beats, and
Mhm.
he's willing to like exchange hands for like different aspects of the story. At least like it feels different, almost like
Yeah.
aliens, you know?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, at this point, I'm here for it. The story's intriguing enough that you have my attention for at least one more movie. And quite honestly, probably the next one
And if
too.
the other one's half bad, nah, all right, let's go see
All
that.
right.
Let's go see the next one. Bone Temple was
I'll
all right.
I'll see your 28 movies. That's fine.
Uh,
Years, months, millennia, I don't know.
we'll do it. It's fine.
Whatever. I'm here for 28.
But yeah, that's our review for 28 years later. I think now it is time. I am actually very intrigued to have this conversation with you as we go
Mhm.
over The Materialists, written and directed by Celine Song, starring Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, Pedro Pascal. Um, usually, this is weird. We usually do the other way around. But Matt, we'll let you go first.
I mean, we got a lot of movies to talk about. I mean, you start the first two, I'll start the next two.
All right, that
Uh,
works.
I really like this movie.
So did I.
Uh, it to me like Celine Song. I mean, she did one hell of a script for Past Lives. She got nominated for an Oscar for her screenplay on Past Lives, and then kind of taking this as her next film. First of all, at the beginning of the movie, I thought I was like, "Am I in the right movie? Like, why is there cavemen here? Like, what's going on?" Like, I had to double check. I was like, "Yeah, it did say Celine Song as the written directed by at the beginning, so I think I'm in the right movie." It said A24 in the beginning, so I think I'm all right. But I took a minute to realize, like, this is not the way I would have thought to start the movie. And then, like, literally 3 minutes later, it has the traditional like the title and then Dakota Johnson and then like okay, like all right, this is the movie. But I don't know. I thought the script was really strong. Like I was kind of absorbed into the dialogue of this movie.
Mm,
Like to me, the highlight of this movie was the written word.
mm.
Like everything they had to say, there's different perspectives on relationships and how you approach a relationship. Dakota Johnson, I loved her in this movie. Actually, all three of them. I loved all three of them in this movie. And remember when I told you that when we saw the trailer for this, I said this seems like a vehicle for Chris Evans in a different role that I
Mm.
wish he would do maybe more of like this seems like a really good performance coming from Chris Evans as
All of them.
opposed to some of the other ones we've seen recently with like Gifted and The Gray Man and Red One. It was very like the comedic style, which I never feel like he necessarily landed, but I like him more in his serious roles. And I was like, I don't know, this seems like this is going to be a good vehicle for Chris Evans, and it was.
Same thing with
Not only
Dakota
for him.
Johnson.
What? Say it again.
Same thing for Dakota Johnson. She's not
Yeah,
Madam Web, but she is Lucy.
yeah, she's definitely not Madam. Like this is when actors go and actually act and perform in front of a real director,
This was
and that's
so good.
like night and day of like how they feel about certain projects. You can feel the energy in the performances,
Hmm.
and even Pedro Pascal. Like the performances were great. The script was great. The direction was good. I liked just the different aspects of how a relationship is treated, and also in the sense of this whole movie, how a relationship is valued.
Mm,
And I love the different perspectives of why are we doing this? What is it all for? Like, why do we need this? What is driving us? What is it? What like here is the math of a relationship. And a lot of the stuff, it just makes sense.
hmm.
Like in the sense of like how they were kind of portraying what love is or what love can be or what love can be looked at, the expectations of finding love, the expectation of being in love, and the decisions you make while you're in love, not in love, looking for love. It's like there were so many different aspects about love that I really, really enjoyed. And like even Dakota Johnson being like, I know everything that I want in a man to make me happy. And you see that in Dakota Johnson, and see that in Pedro Pascal. But there's just an aspect of that just didn't have her go in that direction, and that's where Chris Evans comes into play. Literally the opposite of everything that she wants, but yet that is where kind of the love is. And that's kind of like a traditional rom-com sense, but I know we were having this conversation a little bit before we recorded. I never saw this movie as a rom-com. I feel like as a romantic drama.
Mm,
Uh and I feel like that even some people going into this movie, we were reading some thoughts online as I guess including Esteban, a friend of the show, who did not like this movie, and I believe that this movie was sold as a romantic comedy, and they were expecting maybe a lighthearted tone going into the, and they would just be like, "All right, Dakota Johnson likes Pedro and Chris Evans. Which one she's going to be with?" And that wasn't what this movie was about at all. It was something much more deeper than that, and for me, I really appreciated that.
I'm with you 100%. I feel like I kind of knew what I was signing up for only because I've seen her past work. You know, we reviewed Past Lives when it came out,
Yes.
and I understood the level of writing that I was gonna get once I went in going into this film. I knew that we were gonna get some complex. We're gonna get complex characters. I knew that we were gonna get interesting narrative, and actually, like from the opening caveman thing, at first I was like, this is kind of weird, but then like and immediately I got it. Oh, she's showing like the like raw unpolished love, like the
Mhm.
most primal version of love we have as human beings is understanding these two people, they're just trying to figure it out, and he doesn't have like what Harry, Pedro Pascal's character, has. He has like he's got this cave and we got this corner and we got some food we can get over there and we got this baby and this I'm gonna be here. Like all I can give you is myself. And
Yeah.
and using that, I feel like using that as a foundation to set us up to like in what a like polar opposite we look at our world now. First of all, putting her as a matchmaker, which I thought was really interesting. And then reading an interview, Celine Song did that because she spent time working as a matchmaker, so she had some personal experiences
Mm,
that she was able to relate into the into the into the film. I mean, showing the like using romance as a commodity. Like literally it's her job, like to sell love and to sell this idea of love. And like the whole aspect of like how picky her clients were. 39 isn't 40, or excuse me,
yeah.
uh 39 is not 30s, that's 40s. And it's like
Yes.
5'11 is not 6 foot, or like handing over a resume full of demands. And like you think about that in comparison to the cave scene in the beginning, where like, you know, that's not what that cave woman was thinking about. She's thinking about having somebody love her to take care of that baby. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I just thought I thought it was interesting. I just really thought it was interesting to see how now we reduce people to like status or numbers, like, oh, he has to make over a certain amount a year. And if
Hmm.
you go online on social media, you see all that shit. You see that shit online where like, oh, like this man, he has to be 6 foot, or he has to have that, he has to have that. And like I don't know, I guess I grew up in a time where love was not that. And like we're at these dating apps, so there's the problem is that people they have the internet where they can look at so many other options, and they try to compare it to their reality. And I felt like that was that's where the break is for some people. Like they can't come to terms with what's with them in their reality. They feel they have to, because they know what's out there, because they can go online and see everything else that's out there. They have so much to compare what they could have, that they feel they need to have these lists of demands for what
Yeah.
they feel they deserve. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but I mean, to your point, like they are paying for a service, and this
Correct.
service now needs to be met with these demands because you claim as a service that you can match me with my ideal person that I want to be in love with. And they have this idea based off of a list of criteria that the only way they're going to find love in their eyes is that if you meet all these demands, because that's what I know will make me happy. But I don't want to do the work for it. I want you to do the work for it because that's what I'm paying you for. And if the
Mm,
results don't come out the way that they want it, then that's when obviously we see the result of people getting upset. It was like, oh, this is a scam and all this stuff. It's like, and like, so I felt all that was very interesting, that like, but that's not what love is though. Like it's not a transaction, but in certain cases, the movie portrayed it as that it can be a transaction,
yeah.
or business deal, as they said. It's a partnership.
Well, I mean, it is like
It is, yeah, it is.
marriage is a
It definitely
partnership.
is.
Hey, we gonna ride this thing out till the wheels fall off. Like, what it's like, and you bring up a good point. You just reminded me of so when Lucy Dakota Johnson, when she's at that wedding for her getting the night, she got her ninth client, has made it to
Mhm.
their wedding. And she's there talking to these group of women, basically like poaching her next level of clients. And
Yeah,
Harry Pedro Pascal is listening, and I love, and kind of tying back to like where this movie shines, this is in the written word, is when they're sitting there and he's talking to her about his evaluation of how she obtains her next client, because she doesn't tell them that that they need her. She makes them feel exclusive because she understands how people of wealth like that feel. Like she understands how they think and operate, so she knows exactly what to say to them, understanding that like if they can afford her, then they can talk about having her. It's She sells the exclusivity of being able to offer like the most valued talking of value, talking about one of the most valuable things to us as human beings is finding our partner. Like that is, and she taught, and what she says is real. You find the right
yeah,
partner, like that is the literal most important decision you will make in your entire life, because it will set the foundation for everything else you do. That's your support system. That, she mentions, that's your nursing home partner, that's your grave buddy. That is,
yeah,
I mean, that is real. Those are very, very true statements. And
yeah.
that
But also to your point there, she also did not guarantee that you will find love either. You have I'm giving you the option, not the option, but I'm giving you the opportunity
Yeah.
to check boxes, as she says throughout the movie. I'm here, like I'm gonna check all your boxes to the best that I can to have the best potential of finding love, but not guarantee that you will find love.
Mm. No, yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because she says that, where she needs all these things, and in that same moment when she's talking to Harry, she's talking about getting a drink, and immediately she says Coke and a beer, and it appears on the table, and that's when we get
Yeah,
introduced to
John.
John, Chris Evans' character, and it's funny because like she looks at him, and you immediately, without anything
Yeah,
being said in the film, you immediately know that there is a strong connection between them two, because like it's almost like she like was transported back in time to being with him, or to whatever. We At this point we didn't know, like, but you can tell like she was mentally like having gymnastics of like processing, seeing this person in this place at this wedding, me at this point in time with this person, like you without her saying anything. And kudos to Dakota Johnson, like she played that off very well. Like I fully understood what she was thinking and what she was processing as it was happening in that moment without her saying a single word.
and it's a great moment too because you can see Pedro Pascal flirting with Dakota Johnson in that moment. He's like, "Hey, I see how you work." It's like, "Well, what about you?" It's like, "Oh, I'm. You don't want me. I don't. Whatever." And then she's like, "What do you need?" It's like a Coke and a beer. And so literally drops on the table. The presence of John as Chris Evans, like the presence of him alone, literally lifts her off her feet and demands a hug and say, "How you doing?" But the face on Pedro Pascal, priceless. It is so good. He was so annoyed, like he was getting somewhere, and then
Yep.
like immediately rejected. Uh, the to that, like a halt on his, I guess, progress, that where he thought maybe the night could lead him. And I found that was a great dynamic, and I'm happy that the film wasn't really Pedro versus Chris trying to get a girl.
Yes.
That that is not what this movie was about. Like they were kind of living their own separate lives and accepting, at least uh in Pedro's sense. I'm gonna start calling them by their character name. So
Harry.
Pedro Pascal played by Harry. So Harry's sense, he was like, there's no competition, but he's living his own life. John, played by Chris Evans, living his own life, and uh, like they both acknowledge that she has a history with this guy, but also she is moving on to Harry to some degree. And then now we kind of just see the wheels turning on how she is looking at this relationship. And I love that the interactions that Harry and Lucy have when they're going on their multiple dates.
Mm.
Because she's like, you're spending a lot of money on me. I don't think I deserve it. He's like, well, what do you think this is? And like, well, you're showing me a good time. Like they are having fun, they're enjoying each other's company, but they're also looking at this as like kind of over, like they're both like over analyzing what this is. And they agree that they are somewhat of a perfect match, even though Lucy doesn't feel that way. But Harry feels like, no, you check on my boxes, you're real. Like you're not like the other women. You're thinking that this differently, and they are on the same page of how they kind of see how a relationship should be. But then the one thing that that he couldn't do in her eyes was like, yes, all this transaction needs to be, kind of equals out, but love needs to be on the table.
Hmm.
And that's the one thing that Lucy couldn't do for Harry, was to love him.
That's
Even though we don't never know that Harry even loves Lucy to begin with.
Well, and I think that's what's really interesting, is that he was able to provide everything for her except for the love
Yeah.
that she unexplainably feels with John. Like
Hmm.
she can like she's just so eaten. And John mentions it. He says it to her later on in the film, of the like the that easiest, like his life, everything by reverse, his life is so hard. Everything else is wrong, but the only thing that feels right and easy is his love for her. And what's really interesting is how like Harry's taking her out, and like she even mentions how he how easily he signs the bill, like it's like a thing, like he's able to pick it
Yeah,
up.
like a swift motion.
Yep, he picks it up, puts the card down, signs, and puts it down without even like he probably doesn't even look at the price. What would have been nice is like if we had even seen that moment. It's like seen him do some sort of motion of that, of like maybe the waiter coming and handing him the bill, and they're just in conversation. He doesn't even look, hands him the card, and then doesn't even look down, just signs, adds a random tip line like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
was," like. But I thought it was interesting for her to explain that, and then immediately we get this flashback of Lucy and John on their 5-year wedding anniversary, and they're
Yeah.
fighting because he doesn't want to pay this, what he's trying to find the cheapest parking, but like, but yet she still loves him. Like she still loves him even though like he's broke and he's cheap and he's still like struggling to find himself, but yet she's faced with this man who's like everything is so seductive but it's hollow, but
Yeah.
she wants the wealth of love. Like his wealth
Well,
was tempting but it was empty.
but I would like to think that a lot of relationships end because of money. Like, I think to me that's such a real thing to
Yeah.
end a relationship on. Like the conversation they were having out on the street, of like of her saying like, I love you, but I don't want to be with you because you're poor. Like it was very blunt. Like I love everything about you as a person, but you're poor and I can't live like this anymore.
But
Even though she was probably on the same page of being, like, not as like, she even said when she was talking to Harry, she was like, "I grew up poor and I had to build my way up to become, middle class, but working for a rich clientele." Like, she even said it right at the bat, she's like, "I make 80 grand a year," which isn't an enormous amount of money, especially living in New York.
yeah, true.
So so she's like just skating by. She's enough to be comfortable, but she knows what she wants in a man is the man needs to be rich. But she has that confidence to kind of want that, and Harry is responding to her confidence and how the way that she is treating the kind of their environment, the situation, and but yet all the while, like, there is still this love for John that never went away.
Mm,
The only thing that he almost wished that if there was anything to change is to change financially. Because I think if he was ever become rich, then I think this would have been a no problem. But because they broke up, like probably many years had transpired. We don't entirely know for sure how long the breakup was, but like, I think it's just such a real thing to just have that conversation on the street with like, "I love you, but you're poor and I can't be with you because of that." And it makes life harder. And who doesn't want to have a harder life? Like, no matter how much you love a person, you know that in some way they're kind of weighing you down. And we saw that. She obviously they broke up and then she was able to kind of go on her path and focus on her career because they were both struggling actors and she had to leave that in order to kind of build her a better future. But in John's case, he still wanted to stay on that path, still living in the same apartment, finding roommates, dealing like it's a harsh contrast between the life that John was living and the life that Harry was living. And then we were seeing that life through Lucy's eyes of like this man has his life put together, he has good taste, he has a nice apartment, like he doesn't have to worry about anything. So the idea of would you want to be with someone who can get their life together versus a person who has? And the answer is love.
hmm
For some unexplainable reason, toward the end of the movie, she has this feeling toward John. Just it was never explained. It's just like I just love you. Like they have this history together. And even though they probably know that they're going to be going through all this, I think even the part of it is like you just work it out.
mm. Yeah.
I think there has to be a give and take in that sense too. There has to be compromises. We even see John at the end of the movie being like, "I'm gonna get a, I'm gonna pick up more hours." And the like, he wasn't doing major things to change his life. He's just like, I'm gonna get more hours at the thing. I'm gonna try to pick up more commercials, even though I hate it. It's like these things weren't like I'm gonna make buku money,
Mm,
like I'm to try to match your lifestyle. But you made a really good point when you said that the only thing I have to offer is myself.
hmm
That's it. That's all I can offer you. And if that's not good enough, then
Then
this
what
is
are we?
not gonna work. And then
Yeah.
she was like, "Yeah, deal."
Yeah, because then what are we like? What are we doing? Because Like you don't have to stay broke. You can build yourself. You can start broke and then build yourself up together. But it's that willing to be with somebody who I think a part of it is like, and even that material is like you just want the easy fix. Like you don't want to have
Mhm.
to do the work. You want somebody that's already there. Like when she talks about Harry being a unicorn, he's well educated. He's got lots of money. He comes from money. He has his own money. Like he don't it's like so whoever he marries will like that's not a worry they have to worry about. Like he's good looking, so you don't have to worry about him like not having an unattractive partner. He's perceived to be over 6 foot, which later on we find out that he did the leg extension surgery, which I thought was and we'll get into that later, but I thought it was an interesting aspect for Lucy to have her final realization of when she needed to go back to John. Um, but yeah, I
Well, I mean,
thought
we could talk about that right now. Like, do you think that was a realization that she didn't love Harry anymore? Because she made a point that that wasn't the reason why she didn't love him, even though there was a point that Harry brought up saying that I think this is a problem that you think because you're judging me because I got these leg extensions, even though she sees that as a valuable, uh, um, what's the word? You're investing in yourself in order to gain something in the future. And for him, he was saying that, a lot of women now started looking at me because I was 6 foot or six. They say he gained 6 inches, so 6'1",
mhm.
rather no 6'2". Sorry, he was 6'2" and he was 5'6" before. So he's explained that my goal was to, either find love or get more women. It's unclear exactly what it was at the end of the day, but he did the surgery and it worked. Like he was taller and he was becoming more attractable. His value went up. And she saw that. She recognized that. She actually respects the hustle of that. But ultimately that wasn't good enough, I guess.
I think for me, my perception is that I think she deep down she knew that she didn't want to be with him, and it's not that she was judging him for the leg extensions. I think she realized that yes, this is a good thing you can do to invest in yourself, but this is not something that I want. Like this may be
Mm,
good, this may be good overall, and it's gonna help you, but it's not something that me as a woman I want. Like I want you, like because Chris said, or excuse me, John's not that much taller than her, so
no.
like he doesn't check that box. But like her, I think that's her realizing that I actually don't care about this. Like no, I think it, or maybe she thought it was weird that he hid it from her, or that it
Yeah.
became, or that it was a thing. It became a thing.
Like,
Like
I
it,
mean, yeah, you're right, because there was a secret there that I feel like based on prior conversations that they were pretty open with each other about everything, but clearly not about everything to an extent. But also, I'm kind of curious how much time that they were dating because he was very quick to take her to Ireland, which is not,
Iceland.
Iceland, sorry, and it's not probably uncommon for a rich man to take out a woman that he's dating to a place that they've never been before. I feel like that's common. We see that in movies a lot. But the fact that he was gonna propose right then and there, I'm curious how much time had passed,
Uh,
to kind of warrant a proposal.
maybe a couple of months. But remember they perceive them as being older, so
Mm,
maybe it's like I don't got time to waste. That was something they
yeah,
mentioned earlier. Like the older you are, the more rushed you feel to complete these, like to get these things over with.
yeah. And I think one aspect we haven't spoken about yet is the actual matchmaking job herself, like itself, and kind of like we mentioned earlier with the demands that people have and what they want in a relationship. And I thought a really good scene was that we just see her rotating people sitting across from her, having all these demands. And after there was an altercation, which we'll talk about in a second, one of her clients, uh, that she was kind of just fed up with the whole job of what it was, and she was like, one of the clients was explaining, is like, I want this, this, and this was like 3 pages worth of demands, and Lucy was like, I'm not sure, we're gonna hit all of them or we're gonna do our best to whatever. And she was like, I think I'm owed this because I'm a certain age, and look at me, I'm a catch. And then she instantly kind of just went off. You're not owed anything because you're older. You don't deserve this. You're not entitled to this. And then she ends the line with, and she's like, and you're not a catch. You're not a fish. And to me, that was like some of the smaller moments that made me chuckle because it's like you're a human, you're not a fish,
Yeah, like
you're not a catch.
get it together.
But I feel like that's interesting how even she viewed her job in the beginning of the movie and then seeing how it progressed toward the end. And obviously there was a huge shift in there when she felt responsible of matchmaking one of her clients that was having a hard time finding a good match, that she matched with someone that was also kind of a good person, that at least we thought he was, like, just kinda there and was able to check a few boxes, and then we realized that there was an assault that happened on the date, and that completely wrecked Lucy and kind of re-acknowledging of what her job is and what, how I think how she's viewing her own life as well.
Well, I think it just showcases like yeah, it shows kind of like the limitations of her job, and it also
Mhm.
showcases the like how dark love can be, and
Yeah.
that this love. I think this for me that was her realization that love shouldn't be a commodity, which is why I think she turns down the office manager job, like the promotion.
Mhm.
Why she turns down the massive promotion, because she realizes that she can't do that anymore. Like it's not like it's like it is a scam. Like it to a certain extent it is a scam. Like the love is not something that should be commoditized. It should be something that is just found and experienced. It's not meant to be monetized.
Well,
That
I
was
mean,
kind of like my takeaway from that.
yeah, I mean, to your point, like there was a moment where Lucy confronted Sophie, who was her client, like she was kind of tracking her down the street after not returning her phone calls, and also advised by her manager as well as the lawyers not to get in contact with her. But they started talking anyway, and she was like, "Why would you set me up with a horrible man like that?" And her response to me was crazy, and just kind of solidified like how ridiculous that she can sound sometimes in the sense of like, well, he checked all the boxes, and it's like, yeah, just because they check all the boxes. And maybe what she also realized with even dating Harry is that a person can check all the boxes, but that doesn't define that person.
Hmm. Yeah.
um and like you don't know what that person in the worst case scenario, what are they capable of. But then you also, just because they check out the box doesn't mean you find love. And then I guess that's where the scam come in, or the comment of it being a scam. Like it, I think also is what you're willing to put into it too, and you're managing your expectations. But then there's some situations that just get the turn for the worse, and she completely blamed um Lucy for being assaulted and kind of matching her in a with a horrible person. But yet on paper and even talking to them, we saw the conversations on the phone, he didn't seem like a bad person. But again, you just never know a person, and you won't really know a person until you share these experiences together and actually physically have interactions with the other person to see if this is the right fit for you. And we kind of see that again with Harry as well. Like on a positive note, like everything was going great for her, checking all the boxes, but yet couldn't, lock down love. Like it, to your point we made earlier, it was a hollow relationship, kind of fulfilled by, you know, things that will make us happy, but there's no meat onto it.
Hmm.
And and then again, for unexplained reasons, she has this deep connection with John that even though he checks probably not even half the boxes that Harry does, there's still that element of love, that connection, the time they spend together. Like they looked like they had a great time, the willingness of just traveling to this random place, like they were going to go to the countryside and then going to this random wedding and sneaking in and being wedding crashers and kind of judging them while also enjoying each other's company in this atmosphere. Like the spontaneity, the idea of like just doing whatever you can with a person was not there with Harry. Everything was overanalyzed.
Well, and yeah, putting them in that setting, and I love that it opened up John to like what are we doing? Like what are we doing here?
Yes.
Like he was completely enthralled in the moment, and all that. And I also think it's interesting is like she turned down like she left the trip to Iceland to just go travel upstate to New York
Yeah.
for a random for like a random week. Like, but that's how much she valued like having real love as opposed to this
Yeah.
transactional love that it seems that many people who go off material needs and her clients basically of what they look for.
Now, with all that, I want to talk about the ending. I personally feel like this movie would have been perfect for me if she didn't end up, because obviously there was a point in the movie where she broke up with Harry
Yeah,
and then started the journey with John, and then by the end end up going with John, and then I think at the end credits we see them going, looks like a
yeah,
courtroom, yeah,
courthouse wedding.
to sign. Looks like they got married.
Hmm.
Yeah. So like there is that aspect of it where like I almost wish there wasn't some sort of a happy ending in this situation. Maybe I'm cynical about it, but like I feel like it would have been having a kind of a stark message of like we don't know what love is. Maybe it's not John, maybe it's not Harry, but it could be something that's not there yet. But we're just still trying to figure it out.
I,
And love is out there, but the idea of love is what drives us, but not necessarily finding love at the end of the day.
I
But
think I think Miss Celine Song was trying to tell you that it can be that simple. I think
it
to
can
me
be
that was the whole. To me, I loved it. That I loved the bookend. I mean, he literally he makes her a flower ring and propose
yes.
like a total bookend to like bring back the beginning of the film to understand that that's what it's about. That simplistic, intimate, real love. Like you just know that love can literally be enough. Like if you love that person enough, it can be enough. You can make it be enough and you can make it work with that person because they deal with all the good and the bad of you. And it's
Mhm.
when they have to put up with the bad is when you truly appreciate like, wow, I do a lot of dumb shit, but that person still loves me. Wow. It's pretty great. Like it's pretty
I,
great.
I like I like your perspective. You actually turned me around on the idea. I like that. I mean, again, being the bookend of the movie, kind of just being like, love is enough. And throughout the whole movie, they're saying that love isn't enough. Love is just a part of it, but it needs to also be all of these things. But with John, it's just love. It's not anything else on those boxes. I'm sure, again, he's attractive looking man. It's fucking Chris Evans. And he's tall, so that definitely checks a few boxes there. But at the essence of his character, it's just love. He's like, that's all he can offer. And the rest they'll figure out. And I guess that's what it means at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I really enjoy this movie. Very quickly, I know this was an A24 film, so I want to quickly talk about the box office. Opened in I think number 3, if I'm not mistaken, and had about $11.3 million opening. I think the budget on this movie was I think 20 million.
Yeah, I thought I
Yeah,
read those 20.
yeah, the budget was 20 and it opened to about 12 million or so. I believe, yeah, this is 11.3, which is not bad for an A24 movie and, going against big blockbusters going out in the summer. For it to come out in third place is really a pretty good deal. And they also said this was the third best opening for an A24 film. So
Yep.
definitely uh, breaking some sort of ground in that, indie market. So at the time of this recording, it has domestic gross of 23.9 million, international at 7.5, with a grand total of 31.4 million dollars. So like a decent return is definitely making back its budget. Not sure if it's going to go any higher than this. It is approaching now its third week, and it's already kind of far down the totem pole with all these other big blockbusters coming out. But I think this was a good option. Like people are still talking about this movie, and obviously people are still kind of going. Seeing my theater's kind of half full on a Tuesday afternoon, so like, um, people are still kind of going in there. Has huge names attached to this: Chris Evans, Dakota Johnson, Pedro Pascal. I mean, Pedro Pascal's everywhere this summer. You'll see him in this movie. You see him shortly in Fantastic Four, and he's also in a movie with directed by Ari Aster, as called Eddington. So he's also in that movie too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So like, he's you're never gonna get enough of Pedro. He was also in The Last of Us earlier this year. So like The Last of Us season 2 for a little bit. So like, yeah, he's definitely working the game right now. But yeah, as far as my final thoughts, I really enjoyed this movie. This is a strong contender. I think for me so far, this is one of the few movies that I will remember this movie, and it's now up there as my top films of the year.
Oh, I totally agree. Like I thought it was great. I mean, Celine Song, she can just I just love the way she writes her characters. I think
Yeah.
she is a great director. Like she gives the actors the room to breathe, like, and to
Yeah.
really play out, the scene. Even some of the cinematography, like these wide landscape shots she was able to put in the beginning. I loved it. Like, kind of, I really really enjoyed it. Like, final thoughts. Great movie. All-star cast. It left me, like, literally, I'm in the movie and I was like, damn, that's a good line. Like, damn, that's a good line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or
Yes.
just certain story beats like made me stop and pause, or just like her setups are just really really well done. Like, she just crafts a really good narrative.
You
I
make
thought
a
it was
really good point.
fantastic.
Like, there were a lot of great lines in this movie. It's like, damn, that's a good one. Damn,
Yeah.
that's a good one. Like consistently throughout the movie.
Yeah, I mean, easily, this movie's a 4.5, like almost 5.
I
I'm
should we call it? Should we call it a 5 out of 5? Because I'm almost there.
I'm gonna say I call it, because to me, like, it
Yeah.
was a great, like, and it wasn't like strong comedy, but I feel like there was enough comedic elements. I mean, like the leg extension thing, and
Hmm.
like, the wedding crash. Like, it was like very lighthearted comedy that
Yeah.
it was able to add some levity to the content and not make it so heavy and because you could easily have gone the other way and just made it
Yes.
a heavy, like, dark drama about love, especially with like all the abuse stuff, like. But no,
Hmm.
they kept it lighthearted, almost in that, like, rom-com area. I
But it also wasn't too comedic. This wasn't a comedy.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
But also, to your point, like, some of the lighter moments, I think what was great, there was a buildup when she was trying to, like, convince or just be like comfort the bride to be earlier in the movie. And she was like, why are you like the
Mm.
deepest, darkest soul? Like, why are you marrying this man? And then even the buildup in that scene was like, you promise not gonna tell anybody? He's like, yes, this is gonna take it to the grave. She's like, okay, I'm marrying him because it makes my sister jealous. And like, just the delivery gave me a chuckle.
Yeah, I thought that was funny as shit. Like,
And like, it was that raw, like, truth that just brings out a little laugh to it. But also it came back to, like, to be something really real. And it was kind of the basis of the rest of the movie. She's like, so he makes you feel valuable. And that's the exact same thing that Lucy tells Harry.
hmm
She's like, I like you because you make me feel valuable. Like, we're doing this because you make me feel valuable. And so it kind of came back around in a way. So like, a comedic moment still kind of was very important to the story, which is compliment to her writing.
hmm
Which is why I think it's worth pushing to 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this
All
movie. I
right.
think this is the second 5 out of 5 we've given out this year.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that, like, I literally, the second the movie ended, I texted Esteban. I said, "Did we watch the same movie? Like,
Hmm.
are you sure you watched Materialists?" I said, "Maybe you should go watch Past Lives." So, and I feel like maybe that's a part of it, is that, like, I went in there understanding the vibe of whatever she was gonna put out. Like,
Yeah.
I get her style of filmmaking.
I think, to your point, yeah, we recognize what movie. I think that was part of it. We know what movie was going in because we've seen her past work.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I think that helps. Past work, past life.
Ha-
But yeah, next time we have Steph on the show, we're gonna ask him about what kind of movie he
I
kind of
had
saw.
already planned on it. I said, we're going to review this, but I want to take 10 minutes and I need to
10 minutes.
understand. I just need to understand what you didn't like about this movie. Or maybe you walked into one movie and then you realized you was not right, or you just watched another movie thinking it was this one, because clearly we didn't watch the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. 10 minutes next time he's on the show. All we need is 10 minutes for
Yeah.
sure. All right.
So
Last but not least, one last movie.
we will move on to The Life of Chuck, written and directed by our boy, Mike Flanagan.
Mm.
Based on a short story written by Stephen King, The Life of Chuck, starring Tom Hiddleston, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Karen Gillian, Jacob Tremblay, and Mark Hamill. Matthew, your thoughts on this film?
Also, I love this movie.
Facts.
Facts. um, Mike Flanagan hits another home run, man. There is a lot to kind of unpack with this movie. But I love the three act structure, kind of told in reverse order in a
Hmm.
way. But we don't really know exactly what's going on. So what I loved about the first, I think it's an act three, act two, act one, right?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's yeah. So act three, which was the first thing that we saw, kind of centered around this like mystery. We know Mike Flanagan is a horror guy. So granted, none of this movie was horror based at all, which is part of
Mm-mm.
the intrigue that I really want to see this movie because like, oh, Mike Flanagan is not doing a horror movie, but we love him as a storyteller. So what do you have to offer? You're also adapting a Stephen King novel, which is also primarily known for horror, but you're choosing to adapt something that is not in the horror genre of his kind of wheelhouse. So, so kind of going knowing that going to this movie is not a horror, but yet we see kind of his horror roots happening within the third act, first part of the movie, because there's like this mystery surrounding who is Chuck Charles Lance, I believe is his name.
Charles Krantz.
Sure, Krantz. Like who is Charles Krantz? And it was like a kind of a comedic moment in that, but also like there were some kind of scary moments where like everything goes dark and you just see him flash in the windows and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Like you just don't know. And so like I like kind of that mystery angle of it that we got in the first act or the third act, first part of the movie. Then that transition to act two and we get this standalone story that was told so well, in my opinion. We get the introduction of this drummer, the introduction of I'm gonna say the name again. Charles, uh,
Krantz.
is it Charles Krantz or
Yeah.
Lance?
Krantz.
Krantz, Charles Krantz. I need the name. There it is. Charles Krantz. And then we get to see this other woman who's definitely having a bad day. And we have these three characters that were introduced with a voiceover from Nick Offerman. He's narrating this whole story. And then we get to see this like spur of the moment interaction between three strangers that I thought was beautiful. Like it really didn't have much to add to the story, but it was very much about life, the random moments in life. We don't know why we do these things or why we did it. But it just happened. And it was told in a very uh existential way because we learned that he just died or like the first part was him dying and then we're going in reverse order and so then we see just a glimpse of this a happy moment that he had and then we see like kind of quick shots like what might have spurred this moment of spontaneous dancing with strangers and then we kind of see where that went in the third part of the film act 1 of kind of explaining his childhood and then we get to see the interest of dancing. It's something that probably got lost on him throughout the way because he became an accountant, got a real job. And so like it just like the way of life, but told in a non-linear fashion, I thought was fantastic, and I was enthralled from start to finish. But what about you?
100%. I think just the whole film's theme, "I Contain Multitudes," which is from Walt
Mm,
Whitman's "Song of Myself," which is they reference throughout the entire film. It's like we look at every life as like a universe of moments. Like him interacting with his teachers. Like in the end, it's really like the people in how I perceive it. Once we get to the end, you realize it's the people in his universe that he's
yes.
connected to because the people in the beginning of the film were actually teachers from. If you looked in the end of the film, they're like teachers in that school where he went to school. So this act three, the beginning of the film, is like this post-apocalyptic world of like showing the world ending. I thought it was really funny, like the whole like the internet going down and like that
Yeah.
having that being like a point of contention of people being like how wrapped up they are into the internet that like the internet going down like takes people out. It's like, well, we can still do notes. It's like, how are they supposed to study? He's like,
Yeah.
did you see that they took away Pornhub? Like, did you see? It's like, that's what like we're here talking about your child, and this is where and this is what you're focusing on, and it's just like I think it was a way to like bring people in to like really understand what's important in life. of like sitting down and having like that more forcing of that human interaction. It's like you don't even go to work today. It's gonna that there's a sinkhole. It's gonna take you 3 hours to get to work. You know, they're saying
Mhm.
that more people are just and like people are knowing that this is the end of the world. So like nobody's going to work. And I thought they kept saying, well, you know, the suicide rate has gone down. It's like, well, why is that? Because you know, people now know that the world is going to end, so they're living as if imagine. And I didn't even think about this until now. So imagine if you could live like Chuck and you knew that you were going to die. So how
Mhm.
would you live the rest of your life? Would you be sad and depressed if you knew when your end date is? Like you, so now you know. Oh, I have until this date to live my life and do whatever I want to do. Um, what am I going to do with the time I have left? So
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting that they put that in there, but yet like the suicide rates have gone down. So like all these people, they're no, what, are they no longer depressed? Like now that you learn that you're gonna die, does that take that away from you? Is that so? Is it just the existentialism of you not knowing when you're gonna die has put you into that where you're at now? So
Yeah.
like could what if you just live your life like if you knew you were going to die, if you thought today was going to be your last day, why couldn't you live your life like that? And I think, you know, seeing the world go out, and even the teacher in the end, like the last thing he says to his ex, he realizes that he loves her, that he still loves her, and that when the world ends, that that's who he wanted to be with. You know, that we get
Yeah.
that ending. You know, I thought it was a beautiful scene, and also I think a point to like us being inundated by light pollution. If all the power went out and we were able to see the
Mm.
stars, like you wouldn't be so worried because you're in awe of being able to see the universe every night. Like
Yeah.
you're inundated with that of how small you are in comparison to the universe. You know? So I thought it was
Ye
beautiful. I thought it was beautiful to see the like really see the sky at night and understanding like what we're missing as human beings.
ye and what's also interesting, at least in the like, all of this was happening in the mind
Charles Krantz. Yeah.
of Charles Krantz. Like, this wasn't real.
This is his
Like, the
universe.
his yeah, his universe and all of these kind of these what's the word? All these people that we saw in the part 1 was all people that he somewhat interacted with or had very little affiliation with without his with throughout his life. Is like the two main characters in part 1 were not even featured in part 3. They weren't even his teachers that
Mm-mm.
we understand. They were just like teachers at a school that he went to.
Mm-hmm.
But yet those two people were prime main characters in his universe that he's built in his head. These memories that he's collected throughout the years, like kind of all culminating into one thing. Imagine if we had like even like some other movie talked about like we only use like 10 part of our brain, but imagine if we had like access to a larger, like
Mm.
more than just 10% of our brain, like all these people that we interacted with, they're all just building their own little world in your head. Like I just found that interesting that those people really didn't have any significance in the life of Chuck. But they served a larger purpose in his head
Mm-hmm.
that he was probably unaware of this life that was going on, this universe that was happening inside of his mind. And
Mm-hmm.
it also just kind of for me emphasizes how crazy the brain can work, of like what it remembers, what it doesn't remember, what it perceives as the ending of life. Is like for them the world is ending, and it is because the person that's controlling this world to some degree is dying. And it's really interesting, and also, again, going back to the mystery horror element just for a quick second, but when you seeing the stars and they're kind of enjoying it, and then all of a sudden you see the lights go out, it was like, "Doo, doo," like, it
Yeah.
was such, like, a hard, like, sounding noise. To me, it was just creepy, but I think that was a little bit of the vibe of it as well. And then all of a sudden, all the stars go out, and then, we see that as the official passing, like, once the lights go out, you're dead.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought in a way, just like I wanna kinda go back and rewatch this movie again, watching the beginning of it, kind of knowing the perspective of everything I learned throughout this whole film. I think upon a second rewatch, watching that first part will mean something a little bit different, knowing that it's no longer the mystery of what's happening in his head or what's happening in this world, but rather the end of a life that's happening inside of a universe inside someone's mind.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of crazy to kind of think of it that way. And then now going into the second part of him just having the spontaneous moment of happiness. And even Nick Offerman as the narrator was saying, like, he doesn't know it yet, but he's gonna die in 9 months. And that's kind of crazy to think about. Like, again, living your life. You just don't know when it's your time to end. But yeah,
Unless you do, because I mean, we don't find out until later, but he does find out that he does find out like when he's going to die, and that's kind of like how he lives his life. But we see that take place here where he's just on a trip, he's on his business trip, and he hears this music, but it triggers something in him, and as opposed to just like enjoying it the moment and kind of letting it pass, he, knowing what he knows, decides that, well, I'm going to take advantage. I'm going to take full advantage and fully engross myself into this moment, and that's basically what that scene is. And that, like that whole choreographed scene. I mean, it was so super entertaining.
it's
Like it
so
was really
good.
fun. Um, but there's a lot of callbacks in that scene that we find out later. So when Chuck asks Janice to dance with him, the way that he asks her to dance is the exact same way that his grandmother asked him to dance later
Hmm.
on. Or when the busker is doing the cowbell, and he starts hitting his finger, it's the same exact thing. So it was like that callback that reminded him of somebody who was really important to him, and that was his way of being able to enjoy that moment. But in him leaning into that moment, he was able to make that drummer all that money. He was able to help Janice's day better.
Yeah.
So like, you containing multitudes and you making certain decisions that could affect somebody else, like you don't realize the effect you could have on somebody else's day. Like, the busker said later, well, I would have only made like 30 or 40 bucks. I've made so much money that I feel the necessity to share it with you, regardless of how much money you make or how much money I
Yeah.
need. Like, this is a moment that we all shared together. And then him not knowing that Janice's boyfriend broke up with her, like he inadvertently made her day better and her forget about this thing that like would have wrecked her whole day, based
Yeah.
off of that one moment. Changed both all three. Well, maybe not so much Chuck's life, but changed both of those other two individuals' lives based off his decision in that moment.
I would say that kind of, I mean, not changed his life, but definitely changed his day. I
Ah,
mean, he was
that's
at a
fair.
conference, so he was just gonna go about to his hotel, but something, as the narrator said, something gave him the urge to start dancing. And when asked, like, "What made you do that?" He said,
I don't
"I
know.
don't know." But we learn in the third part of the film, Act 1, we know why he did that.
Yeah.
Because something in his brain wanted to relive this moment that he cherished with his grandmother. And I'm curious to know, like, if he truly didn't know why he started dancing, or he didn't want to explain why. Because technically his grandmother died at a young age, so maybe he kind of forgot that moment.
Mm,
Um at this part of his life. Also, he was unaware that he was dying, so maybe part of his brain was not able to remember that just yet. And he didn't know that he was dying at that moment.
mm,
So maybe that part of his brain was not recollecting what, that past memory. But I thought that was just such a tender, spur of the moment scene that really didn't add much to the movie, but but also meant a lot to the film. It was almost like the mid story break in because it was the shortest act too. It was probably no more than 15-20 minutes.
mm.
Probably more was done in the dancing than it was in the entirety of the scene. Maybe 15 minutes too short. I would say arguably maybe 20-30 minutes into the film was devoted to the second act of the film.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like such a insequential part of the movie, but also it meant everything in the movie.
Yes.
If that made any sense.
Well, to me, it's kind of what would like ties it together, because this is the
Yeah.
moment. Because I think him getting the headaches, I think, yeah, he doesn't know at that moment, but I think that's when he realizes that he's starting to near the end of his life. Because then we move in.
Well, at least he knows that something's wrong.
He knows that, but he knows that's coming up. But what we
Yeah.
learn, and we don't know this yet, but later on in the film, we learn that he sees his death at the end. Like he knows when he's going to
Yes.
die.
Well, he knows that he's gonna be dying an old man. But even they said they don't know when or how, but he knows that like what his grandfather saw up there was just death,
Hmm.
and he kind of saw the same thing. But also now going into the third part of the movie and Act One was kind of seeing his early life and also just filled with tragedy. Like his parents and unborn sibling
Hmm.
had died in a car crash, then now living with his grandparents, and then he sees this joy in dancing. He loves to do it. He was doing it with his grandmother. His grandmother was his person, kind of his rock, and then his grandmother passed away, and then he's now left with his grandfather who is an alcoholic, but never abusive, never like mean or anything, but just
Mm.
an alcoholic. And his grandfather was the one that kind of teaches him like, look, you can dance all you want, but like math is the universe. Math is the world. Like without math, we can't do a whole bunch of stuff. And I loved the dialogue that Mark Hamill had with his grandson about how to like you may think math is boring, but math saves lives. Math destroys lives. Math makes decisions for other people. Like you don't understand how much math is integral to our lives.
Mm.
And it gets kind of just showing him a different perspective on some things that you might find boring, like kind of like these life lessons you learn as a child that you kind of take with you, so much so that we know in his future that he becomes an accountant.
Yeah.
Like, it had that much value to it, but his true passion was dancing. But, he became an accountant instead. That was probably more of a tangible thing. Even Mark Hamill was like, "Look at the odds, kids. Like, the chances of you becoming a professional dancer and making money off of it is very slim, but becoming an accountant, that's almost a guarantee if you work hard for it."
And I think the way that he explains it to him is that they're like, and in the first act is called "I Contain Multitudes." It's like there is uh there is some artistry to his accounting, because the
Mhm.
way that he puts those numbers together could save somebody's life.
Yeah.
He's doing life changing work, but yet he still has to apply his creativity with the numbers to make it work, more or
Yeah.
less. That and I felt that it was just a great way for him to explain that, like, you don't have to give up that part of your life, but that doesn't have to be the only part of your life.
Yeah. And then, we get toward like again a really really touching moment with him as a kid, and he's going to the dance and he's afraid to dance with the girl even though he's like the best dancer there, and the girl clearly wants to be not be with him but kind of dance with him, and he's like, look, we're going to look ridiculous. I'm so small and you're so tall, and she's like, I'm just here to dance. And for the one moment, like I think it was like not I think what not like the later that evening, his grandfather passed away,
Hmm. Yeah, he
or
has a heart
maybe
attack.
shortly after.
He,
You knew
I thought it
it
was
wasn't that night.
no, it wasn't that night. I thought it was shortly after.
I think it was shortly. I think you're right. No, no, no. He was older. Yeah, my
He was
bad.
like
He
a
was older
teenage. He
because
was
he
like a
was
teenager.
like a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
So a couple years had passed from there. But he has this nice moment that we're kind of again introduced to like his childhood. We see him this love for dancing, and then he kind of goes out and he has like the night of his life, even though he didn't want to dance. And again, one of these tender moments that are in these movies that kind of like this is what defines what life is these small moments that you kind of cherish even to adulthood, even like on Charles Krantz's deathbed. It kind of cuts back to like the scar that he had in his arm, and he said like I always said that somebody beat me up because I danced with his girl or kissed his girl during the prom night or whatever dance night it was that was themed to Back to the Future, by the way.
Mm.
And yet but in reality he was like having the greatest night of his life. That other person never even touched him, even though probably was jealous. And he was just cut himself on a chain link fence while like dancing in the schoolyard or something.
Mm.
But it sounded like a much cooler story when he says that he got beat up by a guy for dancing with his girl. Like it's just those moments. Like for him, it was a reminder. In the way that I see it, was a reminder of his happiness when he was a child.
Hmm.
And then kind of growing up, that's kind of like the scar. Kind of just reminds him of those moments. But and then again, just how life works. It just kind of goes in with more. devastation when we later find out that his grandfather passed away, and then like you see his other in-laws come and live with him for a few months before he goes to college, and you see him as an adult, and you see that his grandfather kind of left him with everything, and we see Carl Lumbly come back, who is the funeral home person, and like, oh yeah, your grandfather helped me out and he helped us out in a bind, and then he goes up to the attic, a place that throughout the movie is, Mark Hamill said, "Do not go up there. It's just filled with death." We later find out that it's kind of filled with death because he's seen at least two occasions where people died from his vantage point up there.
Hmm.
I know he said that he saw like a boy kind of get hit by a car while he was up there, and then I believe he either saw a hanging from the neighbor or the neighbor himself hung himself up in the attic. I'm not entirely sure.
He saw it. He saw the vision in there because I think they also mentioned that he saw his grandmother's death. That Mark Hamill
Mm,
saw his wife's death up there as well, and that's why he
yeah,
didn't want it. And that's why he didn't want to go up there. And then uh, Chuck goes up there and he sees his death, or
right.
he sees he sees an older man in the bed with the crescent. He sees like the same scar on his hand.
Yeah. And to a way, it didn't look like he was afraid of it either. He was like, "Yeah, it's gonna come for all of us." And like, I just see that this is it. And the movie kind of ends with him kind of. Did he leave the attic? Yeah,
Yeah,
and we just kind of left with the attic,
yeah,
right?
yes,
Yeah, kind of like the realization that kind of death is becoming of all of us.
yeah. It comes
Like,
for us all.
there's no escaping it. There's not that much we can do about it. And it's what defines our life is in these little moments of dancing and spontaneity, and at the end of the day, you form these little mini universes in your head that is a culmination of all these random moments in your life, these random people that you might have met once or barely had any interactions with, but it's kind of stuck in your brain somewhere, and it's all culminating into one big universe. I really liked how the story was structured.
Same.
Um, and I think this is just a compliment of Mike Flanagan's able to adapt certain stories. I think a lot of the stories that he's done with Hill House and Bly Manor and Midnight Mass, and especially The Fall of the House of the Usher, he knows, and even Dark Doctor Sleep, um, he knows how to like properly adapt previous, other people's work and make it into something unique and his own,
Hmm.
as if he was the one that created it. And also his original work too. It's just he's a fantastic writer and a fantastic director. And now knowing that what he can do outside of horror, that just shows that he is just a very, very talented filmmaker.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. I obviously, we're Falana fans, so
We are Falana fans. Yeah, there's no question about it. I have not seen a bad project from him yet. There's always
same.
something unique and interesting about the way that he writes his characters and the way that he tells his stories.
Yeah.
Um, so as far as my final thoughts are concerned, I really enjoyed this movie. I am leaning to maybe a 4.5 stars for this one. But like honestly, I don't really have an excuse for it to not give it a 5 out of 5. But I don't know. Again, between this and the Materialist, these are like the two movies that I coming out of there, and I'm kind of still thinking about it, the way that they approach life and certain situations, kind of humanizing these characters and making you kind of reflect on that. And that's kind of what you want, at least what I want in certain movies, is like something that I'm gonna like decide not to listen to music on the ride home and just think about what I watched, and
Hmm.
having this conversation with you, just kind of expanding on this conversation. It's just like something I'm still thinking about, and that's kind of what I want for my movies. And sure, I'm always wanting to be entertained, and we were talking about that earlier with How to Train Your Dragon, but like there's something about a movie that can just linger with you a little bit longer, and like it captures you. A movie that can entertain you, but also say something that kind of makes you think about your own life in a
Yeah, and it makes but it adds to a rewatchability because now
way.
you feel the need to want to go back and kind of like re-explore the film, but kind of look at it through the lens as you've already seen it and kind of focus. All right, well, this is the theme I got last time. Let me see what I missed last time, and then you always find yourself like, oh, I completely missed that. You
Yeah.
always you always finding yourself being able to pick up a little bit more on additional viewings.
Yeah. But your final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I mean, it was fantastic. I loved it. I loved the way that he laid out the narrative. I'm with the same. I'm kind of the same with you in that in like a 4.5 to 5 range, because it is a movie that I still like. I still think about. It just it makes you think about appreciating your life and just valuing the small moments and not
Yeah.
getting caught up in the small or all the bullshit. You know.
So what are we saying as the official box office? Are we putting out 2 5 stars in one episode?
I say let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Another five
Uh
out of five.
another we now put out 3 5 out of 5s and 2 in this episode. This whole year. Yeah, there's just something to say. I mean, also we could be coming out of this. We're biased. We like Mike Flanagan, so we're already going there with high expectations. But honestly and truly, he delivered
Yeah.
on a great story, adapted again from a Stephen King novel, a short story, I should say. And excuse me. And yeah, it was great. I'm very excited to see what he does next as a filmmaker. We see him how he acts as a television writer and how he conducts those stories, but I'm always down for the next Mike Flanagan project. And we know that his at least his words, his script will be featured in Clayface in the DC movie that's coming out next year. So he's not directing it, but he wrote it. So I guess we can see some sort of an aspect of his next project.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, and I think also just as far as the life of Chuck and coming out this summer, it's another movie that like yeah, this isn't the big blockbuster. We're not really talking about box office numbers either because there wasn't really much to say on the matter. But like these movies do come out in the summer that maybe not a lot of people talk about, but these are the movies that are kind of on the forefront of our eyes of like in the midst of all the blockbuster, all the big movies that are coming out, there are all some of these smaller movies that have some really good stuff to say. And so like that's just the magic of going to the movies that you can be entertained by dragons or alphas with who are well endowed, uh, you relationship issues that have, happy endings, and then, different perspectives on love and different perspective on life, and that's a well-rounded going to the movies. That's what that'll do for you.
Yeah, there's literally something for everybody in the theaters right now.
Yeah. And yeah, so here we go. That is all the show we have for you guys this week. That's our spoiler review on How to Train Your Dragon. 28 years later, Materialists, A Life of Chuck. We gave you 4 breakdowns. I'm not sure how long this episode was, but I hope you enjoyed it for what it's worth.
We're over 2 hours.
Um, or a little over. We've done worse.
Yeah.
Um, if you want more from us, you can always follow us on our social media channels. That's on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our excellent letterbox page at Box Office Binger, and our threads and Instagram page at Box Office _ Bingers. The fun doesn't stop here. It continues on all of our social media channels. So be sure to give each one of those a follow. You can see all of our movie reviews on Letterbox, all of our entertainment news that we'll be definitely diving into next week, more into, but we'll post it over there first on our Facebook threads and Instagram page. And then you can see just our fun faces, our beautiful faces, over on our YouTube. And we also post shorts on our TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram page. And that's also areas where you can find our TikTok, our no, our Facebook, threads, and Instagram page. You'll find our new to stream Fridays and weekend movie box office every Sunday. So a lot of stuff going on over there.
Yeah.
So be sure to give you each one of those followers. Ernesto, tell the people what we're reviewing next week.
Next week we are going to be reviewing F1. Formula 1? Is that what it's called? F1? What's it?
I think it's called F1.
The new Brad Pitt movie, directed by Joseph Kosinski, the same director as Top Gun Maverick. Yeah, I'm really excited of it. There was actually some of it that was shot here in Daytona Beach. It looks really good. It's getting really good early reviews. This seems like a movie that needs to be seen in Dolby or maybe 40 or maybe like 40x or something.
I really want to see this movie in 40x. This is a 40x written all over
Right?
it. It's I mean, to me, I'm just excited because like Top Gun Maverick gave you that like rush,
Yeah.
And to me, Joseph Kosinski coming off of Top Gun Maverick and giving us like I think it's called F1 the movie.
Mm.
So like giving us that thrill that I can anticipate happening. it's also already early getting positive reviews on it. So I'm really looking forward to talking about this movie next week.
Same, same.
I mean, who doesn't love Brad Pitt? He's a
Exactly.
star. But yeah, so that's all the show you guys. That's all the show we have for you guys this week. Really appreciate you kind of sticking us to the end and kind of listening to us just talk about movies. Really do appreciate it. Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
And I've been Ernesto Santos. See ya.